Imagine standing on a stretch of land that hasn't felt the touch of seawater for thousands of years. A place where the ocean's retreat has revealed something astonishing. Beneath your feet lie the remains of an ancient world, a civilization so advanced that its engineering feats defy everything we thought we knew about human history. These aren't just scattered stones or vague impressions in the earth. These are carefully planned structures, complex systems, and artifacts that tell a story of innovation, resilience, and knowledge that seems almost otherworldly. For centuries, these sites lay hidden under waves and sediment, waiting for the right moment to share their secrets. Now, as shifting climate patterns and dedicated research bring them back into the light, we're granted a rare glimpse into a chapter of our past that has long been shrouded in mystery and myth. What if everything you learned about ancient history missed a crucial piece of the puzzle? A global civilization that mastered engineering on a scale we're only beginning to comprehend. This video is an invitation to explore those forgotten shorelines and the pre-flood engineering marvels they've begun to reveal. We'll travel across continents and dive deep into geological evidence, architectural wonders, and technological innovations that challenge conventional timelines. From sunken cities with grid-like streets to megalithic structures aligned with the stars, each discovery peels back another layer of this enigmatic past. These finds don't just belong in textbooks, they urge us to rethink human potential, creativity, and our relationship with the natural world. They whisper of societies that thrived, adapted, and ultimately left behind clues for us to decipher. So prepare to embark on a journey, one that will take you from the ocean floors to the edges of human imagination. We'll examine how ancient builders harnessed water, moved massive stones with precision, and designed communities in harmony with their environment. Along the way, we'll connect geological data with age-old flood legends, explore the psychological impact of these revelations, and consider what these long-lost cultures can teach us about sustainability and innovation today. This is more than a history lesson. It's an exploration of human ingenuity at its most profound. By the end, you may never look at the past or the future the same way again. So settle in, stay curious, and let's begin unraveling one of humanity's greatest mysteries together. To truly grasp the significance of these ancient shoreline discoveries, we first need to step back and understand the immense, powerful forces that shaped our planet's coastlines. The Earth is not a static museum. It's a dynamic, ever-changing system, and the level of our oceans has been in a constant state of flux for millions of years. The most dramatic shifts are tied to the Great Ice Ages, periods when global temperatures plummeted and massive glaciers, sometimes miles thick, locked away vast quantities of the planet's water. This process is known as glaciation. During the peak of the last ice age, which ended roughly 12,000 years ago, so much water was trapped in ice that global sea levels were an astonishing 400 feet lower than they are today. Imagine entire continental shelves now deep underwater, being dry, exposed land. These were not barren wastelands but often fertile, habitable regions crisscrossed by rivers and teeming with life, prime real estate for early human civilizations. When the climate began to warm and these colossal glaciers started to melt, the water returned to the ocean basins in what is called a glacial recession. This wasn't a gentle, uniform filling of a bathtub. It was a complex, sometimes rapid, process that unfolded over thousands of years. The rate of sea level rise wasn't constant. There were periods of slow, steady increase and others, like the well-documented meltwater pulse 1A around 14,000 years ago, where sea levels rose as much as 60 feet in just a few centuries, a geological blink of an eye. This non-uniform recession is a critical piece of the puzzle. It means that different parts of the world experienced flooding and exposure at different times and at different rates. A coastal settlement in Southeast Asia might have been submerged millennia before a similar community in the Mediterranean, profoundly affecting what evidence was preserved and how. A city slowly encroached upon by rising tides would have had time to be abandoned, its structures gradually buried under layers of silt and sand, while a community hit by a catastrophic tidal surge might have been frozen in a moment of time, like a prehistoric Pompeii. This is where the real detective work begins. How do scientists piece together this ancient timeline and connect these submerged landscapes to human history? They rely on a sophisticated geological toolkit. By drilling core samples into seabeds and coastal sediments, they can analyze the layers, much like reading the rings of a tree. These layers contain microfossils, pollen, and other environmental markers that reveal whether that spot was once dry land, a freshwater marsh, or a deep ocean floor. Crucially, they can also find materials suitable for radiocarbon dating organic matter like ancient peat, shells, or even charcoal from human campfires. By dating these materials, researchers can pinpoint the last time that specific location was above water and exposed to the atmosphere. This allows them to create remarkably accurate maps of ancient coastlines, showing not just where the shore was, but when. When we find a man-made structure on one of these dated shorelines, it gives us a solid geological timestamp for its construction, placing it firmly in a pre-flood context. This scientific correlation is what transforms local flood myths into potential historical records, suggesting that stories of a great deluge found in over 500 cultures worldwide may be rooted in a collective memory of these catastrophic, globally felt events. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most breathtaking categories of evidence emerging from these ancient shores: the discovery of entire cities, once lost to the depths but now slowly revealing their secrets. These aren't just scattered ruins. We're talking about meticulously planned urban centers that showcase a level of sophistication that forces us to completely reevaluate the capabilities of our ancient ancestors. From the sunken structures off the coast of India to the haunting remains in the Mediterranean Sea, these underwater metropolises paint a picture of societies that mastered the art of city living on a grand scale. One of the most telling features is their layout. Archaeologists mapping these sites are consistently finding evidence of grid-like street plans, a concept we often associate with much later civilizations like the Romans or the Greeks. This indicates a centralized, sophisticated approach to urban planning, where traffic flow, public spaces, and residential zones were all considered long before the first foundation stone was ever laid. Perhaps even more impressive than the roads themselves are the complex systems running beneath them. These submerged cities frequently reveal advanced drainage and water management networks that rival modern infrastructure. We're finding carefully constructed channels, sluice gates, and reservoirs designed to handle both freshwater delivery and wastewater removal. This demonstrates a profound understanding of public health and sanitation, suggesting that these ancient engineers were acutely aware of the need to manage resources and maintain a clean, hygienic environment for a large population. It shatters the primitive image we might have of early societies, revealing them instead as pragmatic and highly organized communities. Furthermore, many of these structures show a precise alignment with celestial events. Buildings, gates, and major avenues are often oriented to capture the sunrise on a solstice or to frame a particular star at a certain time of year. This seamless blend of the practical and the spiritual The earthly and the astronomical suggests a world where science, religion, and daily life were completely intertwined. A prime example of this incredible urban planning can be found off the western coast of India, in the ancient city of Dwarka. According to Hindu legend, this was the magnificent kingdom of the god Krishna, a city so grand it was said to be guarded by celestial weapons before it was eventually consumed by the sea. Modern marine archaeology has revealed that the legend may be rooted in a startling reality. The underwater site shows clear evidence of a major port city, with structures spread across a significant area. What's truly captivating for researchers are the multiple layers of construction visible at the site. It appears the city was rebuilt several times, with new structures erected directly on the foundations of older ones that had been damaged or destroyed. This pattern of repeated construction in the exact same location points to a community that was persistently and resiliently rebuilding after catastrophic events, very likely massive flooding episodes that align perfectly with our geological timeline of post-glacial sea level rise. The precision of the stonework, the organization of the streets, and the scale of the docks all speak to a society with a deep understanding of mathematics, geometry, and long-term urban design. These carefully engineered cities were clearly not haphazard collections of huts or simple villages. They represent the work of a complex, coordinated society with specialized labor, centralized leadership, and a shared vision for communal living. Their designs seem to incorporate an innate understanding of their environment, suggesting they were built not just to exist within their landscape, but to actively work with it and withstand its challenges. The very fact that these places were ultimately submerged and then re-exposed gives us a uniquely preserved window into pre-flood life. Land-based sites are often built over, plowed under, or eroded away by centuries of human activity. But these underwater cities were effectively frozen in time, sealed beneath layers of protective sediment that safeguarded them from interference, offering us an almost pristine snapshot of ancient urban life. Examining their layouts doesn't just show us how they built, it hints at a profound, perhaps lost, wisdom, a holistic knowledge system that integrated engineering, astronomy, and community well-being in a way that we are only beginning to fully appreciate. Moving inland from these sunken cityscapes, another category of discovery emerges from the ancient shorelines, one that speaks to a different kind of ambition entirely. Scattered across these once submerged lands are monumental constructions of stone, works of such immense scale and precision that they have stood defiantly against millennia of erosion and the relentless power of the sea. These are the megalithic structures, massive, often enigmatic formations that range from solitary, multi-ton monoliths to complex arrangements of stone circles, truncated pyramids, and vast leveled platforms. Unlike the urban planning of a city which serves a community's daily life, these megaliths seem to speak a different language, one of ceremony, astronomy, and perhaps a profound desire to leave a permanent mark on the world. Their sheer presence on coastlines that were only habitable when sea levels were dramatically lower is our first major clue, physically anchoring them to a pre-flood era and suggesting their builders were working with a very different map of the world than the one we know today. The immediate and most baffling question these structures pose is a practical one. How were they built? The quarrying, transportation, and precise placement of stones weighing tens or even hundreds of tons represents an engineering puzzle that modern experts still vigorously debate. We are not looking at rough, rudimentary rock piles. At many of these shoreline sites, the stones exhibit clean, precise cuts, right angles, smooth surfaces, and sometimes even interlocking shapes that fit together without the use of mortar. This suggests the use of advanced stone working techniques, possibly involving specialized tools beyond simple hammers and chisels. Some theories propose the knowledge of methods to soften or alter stone, while others point to incredibly sophisticated leverage, roller, and pulley systems that would require a deep understanding of physics and logistics. The transportation of these monoliths from distant quarries, often over difficult terrain, implies a highly organized society capable of mobilizing and coordinating large labor forces, or perhaps utilizing technologies for moving heavy objects that have since been lost to history. The investment of such staggering effort signals that these projects were of paramount importance to their creators. When we begin to unravel the potential purposes of these megaliths, their complexity only deepens. One of the most compelling functions appears to be astronomical observation. Numerous structures are aligned with breathtaking precision to celestial events. A specific corridor might frame the rising sun perfectly on the summer solstice, or a series of standing stones could cast shadows that mark the equinoxes. This isn't mere coincidence, it represents long-term, meticulous observation of the heavens. For an agricultural society, such a calendar was essential for planting and harvest. For a seafaring culture, it was vital for navigation. For a priestly class, it might have been the key to religious ceremony, connecting the earthly realm with the cycles of the cosmos. This celestial knowledge, literally set in stone, reveals an intellectual achievement that we are only now fully appreciating. Beyond the stars, many of these massive constructions also served intensely practical terrestrial purposes. Some of the most impressive are the massive platform structures, often mistaken for natural formations at first glance. These leveled, megalithic terraces, found in places like Indonesia and Japan, appear to have functioned as colossal foundations for temples or important buildings, elevating them above floodplains. But their design often goes further, incorporating sophisticated hydrology. Channels and conduits carved directly into the rock suggest they were part of elaborate water management systems, designed to control runoff, collect rainwater, or perhaps even function as part of a spiritual purification ritual involving water. This dual purpose, combining the practical need for stability and water control with the symbolic act of building towards the heavens, shows a holistic way of thinking where utility and spirituality were seamlessly integrated. The most haunting aspect of these shoreline megaliths is their incredible durability. They were clearly built to last, constructed with techniques chosen specifically to withstand the test of time and the elements. This resilience suggests a powerful intention behind their creation. Were these structures meant to be eternal markers, a message to the future? Or does their ruggedness hint at a more urgent motivation? Could they have been designed to survive a cataclysm that their builders either anticipated or had already experienced? The fact that so many are found on shores that were later inundated adds a layer of poignant irony. They survived the floodwaters, but the civilization that built them could not. Each of these silent stone sentinels is more than just a ruin. It is a story of innovation, a testament to a society's priorities, and a resilient puzzle box waiting for us to unlock its secrets, pushing our curiosity about these lost worlds further than ever before. While the grand scale of cities and megaliths captures our imagination, some of the most telling evidence of a pre-flood civilization's brilliance lies in what they built to control the most fundamental element of all, water. As we examine these ancient, receding shorelines, we consistently uncover the remains of incredibly advanced water management systems that reveal a level of hydrological understanding that seems to defy their place in our conventional historical timeline. These aren't just simple ditches or wells. We're looking at extensive, integrated networks of canals, massive reservoirs, precise sluice gates, and sophisticated irrigation channels that were capable of controlling, directing, and conserving water on a truly monumental scale. The presence of such infrastructure indicates that these societies weren't just reacting to their environment. They were actively and intelligently engineering it, demonstrating a mastery of civil engineering principles that would be impressive even by today's standards. Consider the implications of building in a coastal floodplain, an environment these engineers clearly understood intimately. These were zones of immense opportunity, offering fertile land and access to maritime trade, but they were also inherently unstable, vulnerable to storm surges, tidal fluctuations, and the constant threat of saltwater inundation which could poison freshwater sources and ruin crops. The systems they designed show a proactive approach to these challenges. Elaborate networks of canals weren't just for transportation. They functioned as both drainage ditches to prevent flooding during storms and as irrigation channels to distribute fresh water during dry periods. Sophisticated sluice gates, often made of fitted stone or durable timber, allowed them to precisely control the flow of water between different sections, isolating areas for maintenance or preventing salt water from creeping into freshwater canals during high tides. This ability to manage large, variable volumes of water speaks to a deep, empirical knowledge of hydrology, tidal patterns, and soil mechanics that was likely built up over many generations of careful observation and innovation. A stunning example of this maritime engineering prowess has been found in the Gulf of Combat off the western coast of India. Here, sonar and dredging operations have revealed the outlines of a vast, ancient settlement that was submerged by rising sea levels. Among the artifacts recovered, the most revealing are not just potsherds or tools, but the structural remains of what appears to be a highly advanced port facility. Researchers have identified the clear features of tidal docks, structures designed to rise and fall with the tide, allowing boats to be loaded and unloaded easily regardless of the water level. This is a complex concept that requires an exact understanding of local tidal ranges. Furthermore, the site shows evidence of carefully dredged channels leading to these docks, ensuring that even large vessels could access the port without running aground. This wasn't just a village by the sea. It was a planned, strategic hub for trade and commerce, with its entire economy built around a sophisticated manipulation of the aquatic environment. The engineering suggests a society that didn't just live near the water, it commanded it. This leads us to a profound and somewhat haunting question. Were these systems purely for everyday utility, or do they also represent a form of adaptation? The sheer scale and robustness of some of these water management networks suggest they may have been designed to handle more than just seasonal floods. Could they have been a response to the gradually rising sea levels that we know occurred at the end of the last ice age? A society witnessing its shoreline slowly creeping inland over decades or centuries would have had powerful motivation to develop increasingly advanced methods of defense, building stronger seawalls, creating more extensive drainage systems, and constructing larger reservoirs to store precious freshwater as saltwater encroached. In this light, these engineering marvels become monuments to resilience, representing a desperate and ingenious fight for survival against a changing planet. They hint at a civilization that was not static but dynamic, capable of observing long-term environmental shifts and mobilizing immense communal resources to adapt to them. When you place these ancient systems side by side with modern civil engineering projects, the parallels are startling. The principles of gravity-fed water distribution, flood control through diversion channels, and the use of settling tanks to purify water are all concepts that form the bedrock of modern municipal water management. The precision with which these ancient builders leveled their canals for consistent flow, or calculated the angles for their sluice gates to withstand water pressure, indicates a practical knowledge of physics and mathematics that was clearly passed down through a formalized tradition of learning. This continuity of knowledge forces us to reconsider the linear narrative of human progress. It suggests that complex engineering concepts were discovered, applied, and potentially lost long before the eras we typically credit with their invention. The materials they chose to build these lasting systems with, therefore, become the next critical piece of the puzzle, revealing yet another layer of their advanced technical repertoire. The very stones these ancient builders chose tell a story of profound ingenuity, a narrative written in mineral and mortar that has defied the corrosive power of seawater and the relentless passage of time. When we examine the materials pulled from these receding shorelines, we're not just looking at rocks, we're analyzing a sophisticated portfolio of material science that challenges our entire perception of ancient technological capabilities. One of the most baffling and widespread techniques is the use of interlocking stonework, a method where massive blocks were carved with intricate protrusions and indentations, fitting together so perfectly that they required no mortar whatsoever. This isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's a brilliant engineering solution. In earthquake-prone coastal regions, a rigid, mortared wall would crack and crumble under seismic stress. But an interlocking structure, much like a loose stack of children's blocks, has a degree of flexibility. The individual stones can shift and settle during a tremor without causing a catastrophic collapse, allowing the entire structure to absorb and dissipate the energy. This reveals an advanced understanding of not just static loads, but dynamic forces, anticipating the very geological instability of their world. Beyond how they fit the stones together, the method of cutting and shaping them is perhaps even more mysterious. The precision evident in these structures is simply staggering. We see granite, basalt, and other incredibly hard stones cut with clean, sharp edges and smooth, flat surfaces that modern masons would struggle to achieve without powered diamond-tipped tools. The corners are perfect right angles, and the seams between blocks are often so tight that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. This level of precision goes far beyond the capabilities of bronze chisels and stone hammers. It strongly suggests the use of other, more advanced techniques. Some researchers point to the possibility of using specialized saws with abrasives, like quartz sand, but even this requires an immense amount of time and labor for such hard stone. Other, more speculative theories propose methods that are now lost to history, such as the knowledge of certain chemical compounds or even sonic technologies that could soften or manipulate stone to make it easier to work. While the exact methods remain debated, the undeniable result is a precision that implies specialized tools, jigs, and measurement systems far more complex than we've traditionally credited to these ancient cultures. Then there is the puzzle of the materials themselves. In many coastal sites, we find evidence that builders didn't just use whatever rock was nearby, they engineered new ones. The most compelling example is the potential use of geopolymer cement, a type of man-made stone. The theory suggests that rather than quarrying and moving multi-ton blocks, these ancient engineers might have developed a formula for a concrete-like material that could be mixed and poured on site. By combining locally available limestone, clay, and other mineral aggregates with water and a reactive agent possibly derived from plant ash or other natural sources, they could create a slurry that would harden into a substance as durable as natural stone. This would elegantly solve the logistical nightmare of transporting massive blocks. It would also explain certain enigmatic features, like stones that appear to have been molded or that contain material inconsistencies not found in natural bedrock. If proven, this wouldn't just be an advanced technique. It would represent a revolutionary leap in material science, a technology that wouldn't be rediscovered on an industrial scale until the 19th century. The choice of specific, durable materials also speaks volumes about their intentions. In many structures, we find the incorporation of materials naturally resistant to a marine environment. Coral, for instance, is not just a decorative element. When used in foundations or seawalls, its naturally rough, porous surface creates an excellent substrate for lime-based mortars to bind to, creating a stronger bond that is more resistant to the constant pounding of waves. Similarly, the selection of certain types of hard, dense igneous stones like basalt or andesite for critical components shows a pragmatic understanding of material properties. These rocks are far more resistant to erosion and water damage than softer sandstones or limestones. This wasn't a haphazard selection. It was a deliberate choice for longevity, indicating that these structures were built not just for the immediate generation, but for centuries, even millennia to come. This forward-thinking mindset suggests they were building with the future in mind, perhaps acutely aware of the impermanence of their world, and seeking to create legacies that would endure whatever changes were to come. This leads to the most awe-inspiring aspect of all, the lifting and placement of these colossal stones. How did a society without cranes or hydraulics maneuver blocks that sometimes weigh more than 100 tons? The evidence points to a combination of simple machines, profound physics knowledge, and incredible communal effort. The use of levers, rollers, and inclined planes is well documented in later cultures, and it's almost certain these pre-flood engineers employed similar principles. But the scale at which they operated hints at a mastery that goes beyond basic application. They likely understood advanced concepts of center of gravity, friction, and mechanical advantage. The construction of a massive ramp system made of earth and rubble to drag stones to great heights, for example, is a monumental undertaking in itself, requiring precise calculations of angle and volume to ensure it wouldn't collapse under the strain. Some sites show evidence of cleverly carved protrusions and indentations on the stones themselves, which may have served as attachment points for ropes or wooden levers, acting as a kind of prehistoric rigging system. This orchestration of physics, material science, and human coordination points to a highly organized society with specialized roles: architects, engineers, foremen, and laborers, all working in concert to achieve a shared vision, leaving behind a testament in stone that continues to humble us today. But to truly grasp the scope of these ancient civilizations, we must look beyond the shore and venture into the water itself, for their most profound legacy may be written not in stone on land, but in the very harbors they carved from the sea. The receding oceans have unveiled a stunning array of maritime infrastructure that paints a picture of a world connected by sophisticated sea routes and bustling international trade. We're not just finding simple wooden docks. We are uncovering the skeletal remains of massive, engineered ports complete with breakwaters, navigation channels, and specialized facilities that reveal a mastery of the maritime environment that is nothing short of revolutionary for its time. These were not isolated communities tentatively dipping their toes into the water. These were naval powers capable of constructing and maintaining complex harbor works that would remain functional for centuries, even as the very seas they were built upon began to rise against them. Consider the fundamental challenge of building a lasting port in the ancient world. The relentless forces of nature, waves, tides, and currents constantly work to fill harbors with silt and sand, rendering them useless. A simple beach is not a port, it is a recipe for shipwreck. The advanced engineering solutions found at these sites show a deep understanding of these hydrological forces. At locations like the submerged port of Pumpuhar in India or the Yonaguni structures in Japan, we see the clear use of breakwaters, massive walls constructed from precisely fitted stone blocks that were placed offshore to create a calm, protected basin for ships to anchor. The placement and angle of these breakwaters were not random. They were meticulously designed to deflect the prevailing currents and the worst of the storm surges, creating a safe haven even in foul weather. This required years, if not generations, of observing wave patterns and tidal flows, translating that empirical data into immense permanent stone structures. It represents a colossal investment of communal effort, one that would only be undertaken by a society for whom sea trade was an absolute cornerstone of their economy and identity. The ingenuity continues below the waterline. Many of these ancient ports feature evidence of carefully dredged channels, deep enough to allow the passage of large, ocean-going vessels right up to the quayside. Maintaining these channels against silting was a perpetual battle, one that these ancient engineers fought with remarkable skill. Some designs incorporated cleverly placed secondary walls or groins that redirected sediment-carrying currents away from the main channel, effectively using the ocean's own energy to keep their harbor clear. The quays themselves, often built with stepped or tiered designs, could accommodate different water levels at high and low tide, allowing for loading and unloading operations to continue uninterrupted throughout the day. This attention to logistical detail is breathtaking. It speaks of a society that didn't just build for the moment, but planned for efficiency, scale, and long-term operation, thinking like modern port authorities rather than simple village elders. The presence of such sophisticated infrastructure is a powerful testament to the scale of their maritime ambitions. You do not build a superhighway without the intention of hosting significant traffic. These harbors were the ancient equivalent of international airports, facilitating a web of trade that likely stretched across vast distances. The ships that used these ports would have been substantial vessels, capable of carrying heavy cargoes of minerals, timber, textiles, and luxury goods across open ocean. This implies a parallel advancement in shipbuilding technology, knowledge of hull design, sail-making, and navigation that allowed them to traverse not just coastal waters but the deep blue sea. They would have required an advanced understanding of seasonal wind patterns like the monsoons, and likely possessed celestial navigation skills to guide them on long voyages out of sight of land. This wasn't just local fishing. This was globalism on a Bronze Age scale, suggesting economic systems and cultural exchanges that interconnected distant continents long before the age of European exploration. This network of sea routes fundamentally changes our perception of the pre-flood world. It suggests that these civilizations were not isolated entities developing in a vacuum, but nodes in a vibrant, interconnected network. Ideas, technologies, religious beliefs, and genetic material could have been exchanged as freely as trade goods. A mathematical concept developed in one port city could, within a few generations, influence architectural styles in another continent. This shatters the traditional, simplistic model of human history that places the cradle of civilization in one single location. Instead, it proposes a more complex, multipolar ancient world where innovation was a collaborative, international effort, spread across the globe by intrepid mariners who navigated by the stars and trusted in the engineering of their home ports. The ability to construct and maintain this global network, especially during an era of dramatic environmental upheaval and rising seas, stands as one of their most stunning achievements, showcasing a blend of nautical courage, economic ambition, and engineering genius that truly sets them apart. Perhaps the most profound legacy of these ancient coastal builders is written not in the stone beneath our feet, but in the sky above our heads. As we map these re-emerged sites, a stunning pattern comes into focus, a deep and sophisticated relationship with the cosmos. Structures that might initially appear as random piles of rock or simple platforms reveal themselves, upon closer inspection, to be meticulously oriented celestial instruments. The central axis of a temple, the narrow gap between two massive monoliths, or the specific corner of a pyramidal base, often aligns with breathtaking precision to an astronomical event: the rising sun on the summer solstice, the setting of a specific star cluster, or the extreme northern or southern position of the moon in its complex cycle. These aren't coincidences, they are the result of generations of patient, precise observation, a project that required not just intelligence, but a dedicated, long-term commitment to recording the rhythms of the universe. This celestial knowledge was far from an abstract academic pursuit. It was the very engine that powered their society, seamlessly integrating the practical with the spiritual. For an agricultural community, an accurate calendar was a matter of survival. Knowing precisely when the rains would come, when to plant seeds, and when to harvest was information more valuable than gold. By tracking the sun's movement along the horizon, marking its most northern and southern points at the solstices and its midway points at the equinoxes, these ancient astronomers could create a reliable, solar-based calendar etched permanently into the landscape. This allowed them to coordinate large-scale farming activities across vast regions with a shared understanding of time. For a culture dependent on the sea, the stars were a navigational highway. The ability to read the night sky, to identify fixed stars and understand their seasonal appearances, would have been essential for mariners venturing beyond the sight of land, enabling the kind of long-distance trade that their port infrastructure suggests. And in the realm of religion and ceremony, this astronomical alignment connected the earthly realm with the divine. A temple designed so that the first light of the winter solstice illuminated the inner sanctum, and its idol would have created a powerful, awe-inspiring spectacle, reinforcing the authority of the priesthood and connecting the community's rituals to the immutable cycles of the cosmos. A compelling example of this can be found in the now famous Göbekli Tepe complex in Turkey. Though not a shoreline site itself, its principles resonate globally. Its massive, T-shaped pillars are carved with intricate animal reliefs, but more importantly, the enclosure walls are aligned to frame specific celestial bodies. Researchers suggest that the site functioned as a very early observatory and ritual center, a place where the sky was watched, worshipped, and woven into the fabric of myth. On a grander scale, the Great Pyramid of Giza, whose foundational layers may have been planned when sea levels were different and the Nile's geography was altered, is so precisely aligned to true north that its accuracy rivals what many modern engineers could achieve with advanced tools. This wasn't just about building a tomb, it was about anchoring a monument to the celestial pole, aligning the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife with the eternal, unchanging stars. This fusion of science and spirituality reveals a world view where everything was connected, the macrocosm of the heavens reflected in the microcosm of human life. The most humbling aspect of these celestial alignments is their persistence. When sea levels rose and inundated these coastal sites, the water silenced their human voices but could not erase the silent testimony of their stone sentinels. Millennia later, as the waters recede, we can return to these same markers, take our measurements, and find that the alignments still hold true. The sun still rises in the precise notch carved for it on the dawn of the equinox. This endurance underscores the sheer importance of this knowledge to their culture. It was considered fundamental enough to be encoded in the most durable materials available, meant to last for eternity. Uncovering these connections does more than just advance our archaeological understanding. It bridges a gap across time, allowing us to appreciate the intellectual and spiritual achievements of a society that viewed the sky not as a void, but as a storybook, a clock, and a map all in one. Their celestial insights provide a tangible link between the dry facts of archaeological digs and the rich, symbolic world of global mythology, where stories of gods, floods, and constellations have been passed down for generations. Now, as we stand amidst these stone wonders and marvel at their celestial alignments, we are inevitably drawn to a profound and haunting question. Did these ancient astronomers and engineers also leave behind a warning, a story, a memory of their own demise encoded not in stone but in story? Across the globe, from the most isolated tribes to the most celebrated ancient texts, cultures that have had no contact with one another for thousands of years share a strikingly common narrative, the story of a great, world-altering flood. The Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh speaks of the gods deciding to wipe out humanity, sparing only the righteous Utnapishtim, who builds a giant boat to save his family and the seeds of all living things. In Greek philosophy, Plato recounts the tale of Atlantis, a powerful and advanced island nation that fell out of favor with the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. Hindu scriptures describe the submergence of the glorious city of Dwarka after the death of Lord Krishna. Indigenous cultures in the Americas, Australia, and the Pacific Islands all have their own versions of a deluge that cleansed the world, survived only by a chosen few. These are not mere fairy tales, they are the deeply ingrained cultural memories of hundreds of separate societies, and their consistency is simply too compelling to dismiss as pure coincidence. This is where our geological timeline and these ancient myths perform a fascinating dance of corroboration. When we overlay the approximate dates of these flood legends with the scientific data on post-glacial sea level rise, the alignment is startling. The period between 15,000 and 7,000 years ago was a time of dramatic and, from a human perspective, catastrophic environmental change. The melting of the continental ice sheets caused global sea levels to rise by hundreds of feet, inundating millions of square miles of coastal land that had been home to humans for millennia. For the communities living on those fertile, now vanished coastal plains, this was not a slow, imperceptible process. It would have been a series of terrifying events: storm surges breaching new barriers, gradual encroachment swallowing familiar hunting grounds, and possibly catastrophic collapses of ice dams causing sudden, devastating tidal waves. These events would have been utterly apocalyptic for the witnesses, searing themselves into the collective consciousness as a punishment from the gods or a fundamental reset of the world. The stories of these traumas would have been passed down through countless generations, slowly evolving from historical accounts into the powerful mythological narratives we know today, but always retaining that core truth of a great flood that changed everything. The most compelling link between myth and reality is found in the specific details these stories often share. It's not just a simple tale of rain. Many legends describe the floodwaters as coming from the sea, rising up to consume the land. They frequently mention the survival of a privileged few who were forewarned, often because of their piety or connection to the divine, who then go on to repopulate the earth. But perhaps the most significant parallel is the description of what was lost. The story of Atlantis is particularly poignant here. Plato describes it not as a primitive village, but as a powerful, technologically advanced empire with magnificent architecture, complex canals, and a wealthy society that conducted maritime trade with the world. This description doesn't sound like a Bronze Age kingdom. It sounds eerily familiar to the sophisticated, port-building, astronomically aligned civilization we are uncovering from the ancient shorelines. The myth of Atlantis, and others like it, could very well be a distorted cultural memory of a real, pre-flood society that possessed engineering knowledge so advanced it seemed godlike to the simpler cultures that came after the cataclysm. This interplay between hard evidence and ancient narrative does more than just validate the myths. It completely transforms our understanding of them. It suggests that these stories are not pure fiction but are a form of history, a way for ancient people to process and make sense of a cataclysmic event that shattered their world. The advanced engineering we find is not just a collection of practical solutions. It was the hallmark of a civilization whose achievements became the stuff of legend. Their drowned cities became the lost kingdoms of gods and heroes. Their incredible knowledge, perhaps preserved only in fragments by the survivors, became the secret wisdom of a golden age. This blending of history and myth enriches the archaeological finds with a powerful human element: fear, resilience, loss, and the desperate desire to remember. It invites us to listen to these ancient stories not as simple folktales, but as the echoing voices of our ancestors, trying to warn us across the millennia of the awesome and terrifying power of a changing planet. These discoveries do more than just rewrite history books. They quietly reshape our entire sense of human identity. When we confront the reality of a sophisticated civilization that mastered urban planning and astronomy millennia before the pyramids were built, it triggers a profound cognitive shift. For generations, we've been taught a linear narrative of human progress, a slow, steady climb from primitive hunter-gatherers to the complex societies of today. Finding evidence of a brilliant, advanced culture that was then completely erased by natural forces shatters that comfortable timeline. It forces a humbling realization: human history is not a straight line upward, but more likely a series of cycles, with periods of brilliant flourishing followed by catastrophic collapse. This can be a deeply unsettling psychological experience, upending foundations of knowledge we've always taken for granted, and it often sparks a healthy, necessary skepticism toward established historical dogma. This reevaluation fosters a powerful, almost emotional connection across the vast expanse of time. We are no longer just studying anonymous, ancient ruins. We are recognizing the handiwork of people who faced immense challenges with intelligence and determination. Their struggle to build vast sea walls against rising tides, to precisely align their temples with the stars, to create complex societies. These were acts of hope and resilience that we can directly relate to. It bridges the gap between past and present, making our ancestors feel less like distant mythical figures and more like ingenious predecessors whose story is intimately tied to our own. This connection can inspire a new form of respect for ancient wisdom, prompting us to look at indigenous knowledge and oral traditions not as simple folklore, but as potential repositories of sophisticated understanding passed down from a much older world. Culturally, these finds hold up a mirror to our own modern society, reflecting both our achievements and our vulnerabilities. The spectacle of a civilization that may have fallen due to environmental cataclysm serves as a potent, urgent cautionary tale. It begs the question: if a society with such advanced engineering could be undone by climate shifts, what does that mean for us in an age of rising seas and extreme weather? This parallel encourages a critical look at our own technological choices and their long-term sustainability. Are we building for eternity like they attempted with their geopolymer concretes and interlocking stones, or are we constructing a disposable world? Their example challenges the modern assumption that technological advancement alone guarantees survival, suggesting instead that harmony with the natural world and resilience in the face of change are the true markers of a lasting legacy. Furthermore, this journey into the past champions a vital cultural shift toward interdisciplinary thinking. The true story of these pre-flood engineers cannot be told by archaeologists alone. It requires geologists to date the shorelines, climatologists to model ancient weather patterns, engineers to reverse engineer construction techniques, and anthropologists to interpret the mythological echoes of these events in global cultures. This collaborative approach breaks down the traditional silos of academia, demonstrating that the biggest mysteries require a fusion of perspectives to solve. It shows that science and the humanities are not opposing forces but essential partners in the quest for knowledge. This fusion makes history a dynamic, living field of study, one that is constantly evolving with each new technological tool and each fresh interpretation of an ancient text, forever transforming our worldview in the process. So how do we move from these powerful myths and their psychological echoes to verifiable, hard facts? The bridge between ancient stories and modern understanding is built with the sophisticated tools of contemporary science. The romantic notion of an archaeologist brushing sand off a forgotten artifact is just one small part of the story. The real magic happens in the laboratory and with advanced sensing equipment, where a suite of powerful dating and analysis techniques allows us to peer back through the millennia with astonishing precision. These scientific methods are the unbiased referees in the investigation of pre-flood civilizations, providing the chronological framework and hard data that transform intriguing speculation into credible history. Without this rigorous analytical foundation, the incredible structures we find on ancient shorelines would remain timeless enigmas, floating free from any anchor in a real historical timeline. One of the most revolutionary tools in this arsenal is radiocarbon dating, a technique that fundamentally changed archaeology. All living things absorb carbon from the atmosphere, including a tiny, predictable amount of a radioactive isotope called carbon-14. When an organism dies, it stops absorbing carbon, and the existing carbon-14 begins to decay at a known, steady rate. By measuring the amount of this isotope remaining in an organic sample, whether it's a piece of charcoal from an ancient hearth, a seashell discarded as food waste, or the wooden post of a fishing wharf, scientists can calculate how long ago that organism died. For pre-flood sites, this is invaluable. Finding a piece of wood used in the construction of a submerged wall and dating it to 12,000 years ago provides a powerful timestamp, proving human activity was present at that location when sea levels were dramatically lower. It directly connects the structure to a specific window in our planet's climatic history. But what about dating the actual moment of submergence, the point when the ocean finally claimed this land? This is where geological techniques like sediment core analysis come into play. Scientists use specialized equipment to drill long, cylindrical cores down through the layers of seabed or coastal soil. These cores are like a vertical timeline of the Earth's history. At the very bottom, you might find a layer containing ancient soil, pollen from land-based plants, and even evidence of human activity like tool fragments. This represents the time when the area was dry land. Directly above that, there is often a sharp transition to a layer of sand, silt, or marine sediments filled with the tiny fossils of ocean-dwelling organisms. This distinct boundary marks the moment the sea flooded over the area. By using radiocarbon dating on organic material just below and just above this transition layer, researchers can pinpoint the approximate decade or century when this catastrophic inundation occurred, providing a clear geological bookend for the human occupation of that site. Locating these sites in the first place, especially when they are hidden under thick jungle canopy or meters of water and sand, requires a different set of eyes. This is the domain of remote sensing technologies like sonar and LiDAR. Multi-beam sonar systems mounted on research vessels send out sound waves that bounce off the seafloor, creating incredibly detailed three-dimensional maps of the underwater landscape. They can reveal the geometric shapes of human-made structures, the straight lines of a buried wall, or the distinct pattern of a foundation that nature simply doesn't create. Similarly, LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging, uses laser pulses fired from an aircraft. These pulses can penetrate dense vegetation, effectively digitally stripping away the jungle to reveal the bare earth beneath. This technology has been instrumental in discovering vast, unknown networks of roads, canals, and platforms in coastal regions, proving that what looks like untouched wilderness actually rests upon the bones of a lost civilization. Perhaps one of the most elegant methods for understanding the ancient ocean itself comes from a tiny, unassuming source: coral. Coral polyps build their skeletons from minerals in the seawater, and the specific oxygen isotopes they incorporate are directly influenced by the temperature and volume of the water they live in. By taking core samples from ancient coral reefs and analyzing the changing ratios of these oxygen isotopes layer by layer, paleoclimatologists can reconstruct a detailed history of past sea levels. They can identify periods of rapid rise, like the meltwater pulses we discussed earlier, and periods of stability. This provides the crucial environmental context for our human story. It allows us to say, for instance, that a particular submerged city was abandoned right around the time that coral records show a 3-meter sea level rise in that region over just a few generations, powerfully linking the fate of that society to a global climatic event. The true power of modern archaeology lies not in using any one of these tools in isolation, but in their integration. A LiDAR map might reveal a suspiciously perfect square beneath a jungle. A sonar survey then confirms it has well-defined corners and is located on a paleo shoreline. A sediment core drilled through its center finds a layer of charcoal from a fire, which is radiocarbon dated to 10,800 years ago. And oxygen isotope data from a nearby coral core confirms that sea levels were 60 meters lower at that exact time, meaning this structure was miles inland. This multifaceted, corroborating evidence creates an irrefutable case for human activity at a time that completely contradicts conventional historical models. This scientific rigor is what separates rigorous research from fringe speculation, ensuring that our reinterpretation of the past is built on a foundation of verifiable data, allowing us to confidently bridge the gap between the tantalizing myths of a great flood and the physical, datable evidence of the world it left behind. But as we uncover these incredible testaments to ancient genius, a pressing and profoundly important question emerges, one that goes beyond mere scientific curiosity. How do we approach these fragile windows into the past responsibly? The very act of discovery brings with it a weighty ethical obligation, a duty of care that extends to the sites themselves, the local communities connected to them, and to all of humanity that stands to learn from them. These are not just rocks in the water, they are non-renewable cultural resources, incredibly vulnerable the moment they are exposed to the modern world. A site that survived millennia under the protective blanket of sediment can be destroyed in a single season by looters hunting for sellable artifacts, by careless tourist boats dropping anchors on delicate structures, or by industrial activity like dredging or offshore drilling that prioritizes profit over preservation. Even well-intentioned research, if not conducted with the utmost care, can inadvertently cause damage through improper excavation techniques or a failure to properly document and conserve finds after they are removed from their context. The ethical imperative here is clear. First, do no harm. This responsibility extends far beyond the physical preservation of stones and artifacts. It deeply involves the living cultures and communities for whom these sites are not just historical curiosities, but a fundamental part of their heritage and identity. For generations, the oral histories and spiritual traditions of many coastal and indigenous peoples have spoken of lands lost to the sea, places imbued with deep cultural and religious significance. When archaeologists arrive with their sonar and diving equipment to discover what these communities have known about all along, it can feel like a colonial intrusion, an extraction of their history by outsiders. The most ethical and effective modern archaeology actively works to dismantle this outdated model. It begins not with a team of foreign experts flying in, but with genuine, respectful collaboration with local communities and indigenous groups. This means involving them from the very start of the research process, not as hired labor, but as essential partners. It means listening to and respecting their traditional knowledge, which can often provide crucial clues about a site's location, purpose, and meaning that might otherwise be completely overlooked by an external team. It means ensuring that any discoveries are shared with these communities first, and that the narrative told about the site reflects their understanding and their voice, not just a Western academic interpretation. Furthermore, the question of access and benefit is a central ethical pillar. Who ultimately benefits from these discoveries? Is it primarily the academic institutions and media companies that gain prestige and revenue, or do the local communities see tangible benefits? Ethical practice demands that research projects invest in the local area, providing training and employment opportunities, and contributing to a sustainable local economy that isn't solely based on potentially damaging tourism. It also involves a careful, often difficult, balancing act regarding public access. While these sites hold immense educational value for all of humanity, opening them up to unrestricted tourism can be a recipe for disaster. The solution lies in creating managed, sustainable models. This could involve building viewing platforms that prevent people from walking on fragile ruins, establishing strict visitor caps, or even creating spectacular virtual reality tours that allow global access without any physical impact whatsoever. The goal is to share the wonder without loving these ancient places to death. Ultimately, this ethical framework is guided and enforced by international cooperation and strict legal protocols. Organizations like UNESCO play a vital role through their World Heritage Site designations, which can marshal global resources and attention to protect threatened locations. The 2001 UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage specifically provides a framework for protecting sites like these sunken cities, emphasizing in situ preservation as the first and preferred option, meaning that unless there is a compelling threat, the ruins are often best left exactly where they are, on the ocean floor. Adhering to these international guidelines, along with national laws and the deeply held ethical principles of community partnership and stewardship, is how we honor the legacy of the pre-flood civilizations we are studying. We are not just uncovering their story, we are becoming the temporary guardians of their memory, and we have a profound responsibility to ensure that these priceless treasures are preserved, respected, and understood for the countless generations who will follow us long after our own time has passed. While the relentless pace of modern climate change presents a grave threat to our planet's future, it is simultaneously acting as a reluctant and paradoxical partner in our quest to understand the distant past. The very forces that endanger our current coastal cities are, in a tragic twist of fate, peeling back the layers of time to reveal the lost cities of our ancient predecessors. Rising global temperatures are causing polar ice caps and glaciers to melt at an unprecedented rate, pouring vast quantities of water into the ocean and leading to a well-documented rise in sea levels. This phenomenon is actively eroding coastlines worldwide, threatening contemporary infrastructure and habitats. Yet, this same erosive power is also scouring away sand, silt, and sediment that have protected and concealed ancient archaeological sites for thousands of years. In a similar vein, the increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, particularly major storms and hurricanes, generates powerful storm surges and wave action that can strip away centuries of accumulation in a single violent event, briefly unveiling glimpses of a world long forgotten before the sea reclaims it once more. This creates a heartbreaking race against time for archaeologists and historians. Each new revelation is both a monumental discovery and a potential loss. For example, as glaciers retreat in the mountainous regions of Norway and Canada, they are yielding artifacts that were frozen in time along ancient hunting paths. Researchers have recovered perfectly preserved arrows, tools, and even clothing items from Viking hunters that had been encased in ice for over 1,000 years. These objects, once revealed by melting ice, are incredibly fragile. If not documented and recovered within a very short window, they are quickly destroyed by exposure to the elements. Similarly, along the coastlines of the British Isles and North America, severe winter storms have eroded cliffs to expose the remains of ancient forests, peat bogs, and even human settlements that had been submerged since the end of the last ice age. These stumps of oak and pine, along with the footprints and tools found beside them, mark a coastline that existed when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, providing a tangible map of our planet's different climatic past. The urgent work of teams who rushed to these sites to perform digital scans and excavations before the next high tide rolls in is a defining challenge of 21st century archaeology. This urgent situation, however, provides an invaluable opportunity to draw direct parallels between ancient and modern human experiences with climate change. The study of these pre-flood civilizations is no longer a purely academic exercise. It has become profoundly relevant to our contemporary crisis. By examining how these ancient societies responded to environmental upheaval, whether they successfully adapted their engineering, relocated their populations, or ultimately collapsed, we can gather critical data for our own future. Their experiences serve as a long-term case study in climate resilience. Did their advanced water management systems help them withstand longer droughts or increased flooding? Did their maritime infrastructure allow for a strategic retreat to higher ground or the establishment of new trade routes as old ports were submerged? The choices they made, etched into the stone and layout of their cities, offer a library of strategies and potential pitfalls. Consequently, the investigation of these re-emerging sites has evolved into a deeply interdisciplinary effort that now urgently includes climate scientists, coastal engineers, and urban planners alongside archaeologists. The goal is twofold: to digitally preserve a vanishing record of human history and to extract practical wisdom from it, understanding the rate at which seas rose in the past and how that impacted human societies helps us refine our models for future sea level rise. Discovering that a sophisticated ancient port city was abandoned after a meter of sea level rise over a century provides a sobering, real-world benchmark for what modern coastal communities might soon face. This transforms our understanding of pre-flood engineering from a historical curiosity into a crucial body of knowledge, linking the fate of those who came before us directly to the challenges we are just beginning to confront, demonstrating that the relationship between humanity and a changing climate is one of history's most enduring and cyclical narratives. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for a connected ancient world emerges not from a single site, but from the startlingly similar architectural fingerprints left on coastlines an ocean apart. When we place the enigmatic Yonaguni monument off the coast of Japan side by side with the equally mysterious Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a fascinating pattern begins to crystallize. The Yonaguni structure, with its massive, cleanly cut sandstone terraces, right-angled corners, and what appear to be staircases and platforms looks as if it were carved by intelligent hands, though debate continues between those who see a natural geological formation and those who argue for human modification. Thousands of miles away, the Bimini Road presents a similar puzzle. A long, deliberate-looking J-shaped formation of massive, rectangular limestone blocks resting on the seafloor, arranged with a precision that feels anything but random. While these two sites are the most famous, they are far from alone. We see similar submerged megalithic structures near the coast of India, like the complex off the town of Mahabalipuram, and strange, geometric formations beneath the waters of Lake Michigan and in the Mediterranean Sea. The sheer geographical spread of these sites, dotting coastlines across the planet, forces a profound question upon us. Are we looking at incredible coincidences of nature or the scattered ruins of a common architectural heritage? This global distribution points toward two equally revolutionary possibilities, each challenging conventional history in its own way. The first is the tantalizing idea of a global network, a pre-flood world connected not by the internet or air travel, but by advanced maritime trade routes that facilitated an exchange of ideas, technologies, and architectural blueprints across vast distances. Imagine seafaring cultures, masters of celestial navigation, traveling between continents, sharing knowledge of how to build breakwaters that could withstand typhoons or how to cut and move multi-ton stones. This would explain the uncanny similarities in style and technique, suggesting a kind of international school of ancient engineering whose influence spanned the globe. The alternative, and perhaps even more mind-bending possibility, is that of independent innovation. This theory posits that disparate cultures, facing nearly identical environmental pressures, rising sea levels, violent storms, and seismic activity, arrived at remarkably similar engineering solutions entirely on their own. This concept, known as polygenesis, suggests that the principles of stable, resilient construction are not owned by any one culture, but are instead universal truths of physics and material science, discovered and applied by intelligent humans wherever they faced the fury of the ocean. Whether through shared knowledge or parallel invention, the outcome is the same, a worldwide testament to human ingenuity under pressure. By comparing these sites, we can start to decode a universal codex of ancient engineering principles, a shared language of survival written in stone. One of the most consistent features is a focus on seismic resilience. In earthquake-prone regions like Japan and the Mediterranean, many of these structures employ that brilliant technique of interlocking, mortarless masonry. The blocks are often precisely shaped to fit together like a three-dimensional puzzle, allowing the entire structure to flex and shift during tectonic activity without collapsing. This isn't just a clever trick, it represents a deep, hard-won understanding of how to work with natural forces rather than against them. Another universal principle is tidal management. From the possible tidal docks in India's Gulf of Combat to the arranged breakwaters suggested by the Bimini Formation, there is a recurring theme of controlling the ocean's ebb and flow. These builders understood hydrodynamics intuitively, creating structures that mitigated erosion, provided safe harborage, and managed the daily influx of water. Furthermore, we see a widespread use of specific, durable materials. The preference for hard, dense igneous rocks like basalt or andesite, or in the case of Bimini, a particularly resilient type of limestone called beach-rock, shows a global understanding that building for eternity required materials that could fight the relentless corrosion of saltwater. This comparative approach does more than just catalog similarities. It fundamentally enriches our understanding of prehistory by moving us away from a fragmented, isolated view of ancient cultures and toward a more holistic, interconnected narrative. It suggests that the drive to innovate, to solve complex problems, and to leave a permanent mark on the world is not the unique province of any one civilization but a universal human trait. The ancient engineer in Japan, gazing out at the threatening sea, was likely wrestling with the same fundamental challenges as his counterpart in the Caribbean or the Mediterranean: how to protect his community, how to harness the ocean's resources, and how to build something that would last. By piecing together these global patterns, we are not just rebuilding lost cities, we are rebuilding a more complete and awe-inspiring story of human resilience and creativity. This grand, interconnected puzzle, with its pieces scattered across the world's oceans, inevitably leads us to the most profound and enduring mysteries that these silent stone sentinels have yet to reveal. Yet for all the incredible evidence we've uncovered and the compelling narratives we've woven together, the story of pre-flood civilizations remains tantalizingly incomplete, punctuated by profound and humbling mysteries that remind us how much we have yet to learn. The most immediate and practical of these enigmas revolves around the very tools that shaped their world. We can stand in awe of a million-pound block of stone cut with laser-like precision, its edges sharp and its surfaces perfectly smooth. But the question of how they achieved this with what we assume were primitive tools remains utterly unresolved. The common explanation of bronze chisels, stone hammers, and relentless pounding simply doesn't hold up under scrutiny when applied to granite or basalt, some of the hardest stones on Earth. These materials would have shattered bronze tools and worn down stone hammers into useless dust long before making a significant dent. This has led to a fascinating array of alternative theories, each more intriguing than the last. Some researchers propose the use of advanced sawing techniques employing not metal, but strips of leather or copper wire fed with a slurry of an abrasive harder than the stone itself, like quartz sand or crushed diamonds. This would allow for slow, meticulous cutting, but the process for blocks of such immense size would be monumentally time-consuming, requiring an almost unimaginable societal patience. Other theories venture into even more speculative, yet compelling territory. Could these ancient engineers have possessed a form of lost chemical knowledge, a compound or plant-based solution that could temporarily soften stone to a clay-like consistency, allowing it to be molded, shaped, and even fused together? There are obscure accounts from Spanish chroniclers during the conquest of the Americas describing the Incas' use of a plant that made stone soft, though no such plant has ever been conclusively identified. Even more fantastical are the notions of sonic or vibrational technology using specific sound frequencies to resonate with the crystalline structure of stone, effectively liquefying it or making it pliable enough to work. While this sounds like pure science fiction, it finds a curious echo in modern experiments with acoustic levitation and resonant frequencies. The frustrating truth is that we have found no smoking gun tool, no workshop filled with the advanced machinery that would logically be needed. This absence is a gaping hole in our understanding, forcing us to either accept that we are fundamentally underestimating the power of simple tools and human perseverance, or that an entire branch of sophisticated technology has been completely erased from the material record. Beyond the how of their construction lies an even deeper mystery: the who. What kind of societal structure could possibly organize, feed, and direct the labor required to build these monumental projects? The traditional image of a despotic pharaoh wielding a whip over thousands of slaves is increasingly seen as an inadequate and oversimplified model. The logistics involved in creating a city like the submerged Dwarka or lifting the multi-ton blocks of a Yonaguni are mind-boggling. It requires not just brute force but an army of highly skilled specialists, master quarrymen who understand stone grain and fracture points, engineers who can calculate weights and stresses, architects who can draft complex plans, and managers who can coordinate the supply chains for food, water, and tools for a massive workforce, all while maintaining morale and precision over decades or even centuries of construction. This points to a society of astonishing complexity and cohesion. Were these projects driven by a powerful, god-like central authority, an elite priestly class that commanded absolute devotion? Or were they the product of a more collective, communal spirit, a shared cultural goal that inspired voluntary participation on a grand scale? The answer would tell us not just how they built, but what they believed, what they valued, and how they viewed their place in the world, a psychological profile of an entire civilization that is currently just beyond our grasp. And this leads to the most haunting unknown of all. What finally happened to them? We have a general climatic culprit, the rising seas at the end of the last ice age, but the specific details of their decline are lost. Was it a slow, grinding retreat, a generations-long struggle against the encroaching waves where each new storm claimed a little more land, forcing a gradual, desperate migration inland? Or was their end swift and catastrophic, delivered by an apocalyptic event like a massive meteor impact in the ocean or a sudden, colossal meltwater pulse that sent skyscraper-high tidal waves crashing across their coastal plains, wiping them out in a single, terrible day? The geological record shows evidence for both gradual and catastrophic events during this period, and different communities likely met different fates. Did they see the end coming? Did their astronomical knowledge, so precise in tracking the cycles of the heavens, give them any warning of the climatic shifts that would doom them? Their myths are filled with stories of floods and divine punishment, suggesting a traumatic and deeply embedded cultural memory of a great cataclysm. Unraveling the nature of their collapse is not just an academic exercise. It is an urgent inquiry into the vulnerability of even the most advanced societies in the face of planetary change. Perhaps the most contentious mysteries are the sites themselves that defy easy categorization, stubbornly sitting on the blurry line between nature and artifice. The Yonaguni Monument in Japan is the prime example. Its clean terraces, sharp right angles, and seemingly carved steps and platforms scream of intelligent design. Yet, skeptics powerfully argue that sandstone has natural bedding planes and can fracture in strikingly geometric ways due to tectonic stresses. They point to similar formations on land that are known to be natural. The debate rages because if it is even partially artificial, it rewrites the history of human activity in the Pacific. Similarly, the Bimini Road's neatly arranged, massive rectangular blocks look like a sunken causeway or a ruined wall. Yet some geologists contend it is a spectacular example of a natural bicroc formation that fractures into blocky segments. These ambiguous sites are the battlegrounds of archaeology, where the standard tools of analysis struggle to provide a definitive answer. They force us to confront our own biases and the limitations of our methods, reminding us that the natural world is capable of producing wonders that can perfectly mimic the work of human hands. This ongoing debate is not a weakness of the field, but its greatest strength, a relentless, evidence-driven conversation that prevents us from jumping to conclusions and ensures that every new claim is subjected to rigorous, healthy skepticism. It is this spirit of open-minded inquiry, this acceptance of the unknown, that ensures the story of our past remains a living, breathing, and endlessly fascinating exploration. What we are witnessing with these shoreline discoveries is nothing short of a revolution in our understanding of the human story, a fundamental rewriting of the first chapters of our collective biography. For generations, the dominant narrative has been one of linear progress. A slow, steady climb from simple hunter-gatherers to the agricultural revolution, then to the first city-states in Mesopotamia and Egypt around 5,000 years ago, and finally culminating in our modern technological age. This timeline is etched into textbooks and taught in classrooms as an unassailable fact, but the structures emerging from the receding oceans present a formidable challenge to this tidy chronology. They are not primitive, they are profoundly advanced. They are not the first tentative steps of civilization. They are the mature products of a sophisticated society. When we find a city like Dwarka with its multi-layered construction and complex harbor works, or a megalithic platform that demonstrates a mastery of seismic engineering, and we date its submergence to a time when conventional history says we should only have had simple farming villages, the entire framework of human development begins to crumble. We are forced to confront a staggering possibility that the so-called cradles of civilization in the Fertile Crescent and the Indus Valley may not have been the first birth of complex society, but rather its rebirth, a phoenix rising from the ashes, or in this case from the floodwaters of a much older world. This realization shatters the linear model and replaces it with a far more dynamic and humbling concept, the cycle. The evidence suggests that human history is not a straight, upward trajectory, but a series of great waves, periods of brilliant flourishing followed by catastrophic collapses, likely driven by climatic upheavals like the rapid sea level rise at the end of the last ice age. In this cyclical view, our own modern technological age is not the singular, glorious peak of human achievement, but simply the latest crest in a series of waves that may have been rolling for tens of thousands of years. This perspective invites a deep sense of humility. It asks us to reconsider our modern arrogance, the assumption that we are the pinnacle of all that has come before. Instead, we might see ourselves as the inheritors of a long and interrupted legacy, one where knowledge was lost on a global scale and had to be painstakingly rediscovered over millennia. The brilliance of those pre-flood engineers, their understanding of astronomy, hydrology, and sustainable design, suddenly appears not as a mysterious anomaly, but as a testament to what humans are capable of achieving and then losing. Their achievements become a mirror, reflecting both our own potential and our profound vulnerability. The ramifications of this shift extend far beyond academic journals and into the very heart of our culture and education. If this new history is to be taken seriously, it demands a revision of the stories we tell ourselves and our children. Educational curricula, which have long been Eurocentric and focused on a narrow, traditional timeline, must expand to incorporate this global, deeper past. The narrative needs to shift from, "This is where civilization began," to, "This is one of the places where civilization re-emerged." This isn't about diminishing the accomplishments of ancient Egypt or Sumer. It's about enriching our understanding by placing them in a much broader context, showing them as part of a recurring human impulse to build, create, and organize on a grand scale. It fosters a deeper, more inclusive connection to our global heritage. A child in India can look at the sunken structures of Dwarka not as a local curiosity, but as part of a worldwide pattern of ancient ingenuity. A student in Peru can see parallels between the precise stonework of their ancestors and the interlocking megaliths found in Japan. This creates a sense of shared human patrimony, breaking down artificial barriers and emphasizing that the drive to innovate and create is a universal human trait, not the exclusive property of any one culture or era. This redefinition of history is also a potent source of inspiration for our future, particularly in the realm of sustainability. The pre-flood engineers appear to have worked in harmony with their environment, using natural materials and leveraging astronomical and geological knowledge to create structures that were both durable and resilient. They built to last for millennia using passive cooling, sophisticated water management, and designs that worked with natural forces rather than against them. In an age of climate crisis and disposable consumer culture, their example offers a powerful alternative model. It inspires innovative thinking about how we can use technology not to dominate nature, but to create a sustainable and symbiotic relationship with it. By studying their long-lasting solutions, we might find clues for designing our own cities to withstand rising seas and extreme weather, learning from masters who faced and ultimately succumbed to the very challenges we are just beginning to confront. Their forgotten wisdom could become a crucial guide for navigating our own uncertain future. Ultimately, the cultural and philosophical impact of this expanded history is profound. It changes our relationship with time, with nature, and with our own potential. It suggests that collapse is not an end, but a phase in a larger cycle, and that recovery and rediscovery are always possible. It places a greater value on ancestral knowledge and oral traditions, which may preserve fragments of truth from these lost epochs in the form of myths and legends. This isn't just about adding a few thousand years to our timeline. It's about adopting a completely new worldview, one that is more humble, more interconnected, and more awe-inspired by the depths of human resilience and creativity. This philosophical shift from a linear to a cyclical understanding of our past naturally compels us to ask the next great question. If this cycle is real, what did these lost civilizations actually look like, and how did they function? This inquiry pushes us beyond the physical evidence and into the realm of theoretical models, where we attempt to reconstruct the social, economic, and spiritual fabric of these enigmatic pre-flood worlds. Stepping back from the individual stones and structures, we now enter the realm of the grand puzzle, where researchers attempt to assemble all these disparate clues into a coherent picture of what these pre-flood societies might have actually looked like and how they were organized. This is the domain of theoretical modeling, where archaeology meets imaginative yet disciplined speculation to reconstruct entire lost worlds. The evidence we have is like finding scattered pieces from several different jigsaw boxes. The challenge is to figure out which pieces belong together and what the complete image might have been. Researchers have proposed a fascinating spectrum of models, each attempting to explain the sheer scale and sophistication of the engineering we're finding. On one end of this spectrum lies the idea of a highly centralized, monolithic empire, a single, dominant superculture, perhaps like the legendary Atlantis described by Plato, that held sway over a vast territory. This model suggests a top-down hierarchy with a powerful priest-king or elite class directing massive labor forces to execute grand architectural visions, using standardized techniques and measurements that could explain the similarities we see in structures across great distances. On the opposite end of the theoretical spectrum is a model of a decentralized network, a global community of skilled artisans, traders, and knowledge keepers connected not by political domination, but by a shared maritime culture and a common body of advanced understanding. Imagine a Bronze Age version of the Internet, where ideas and blueprints were exchanged not through fiber optic cables, but along well-established sea routes, connecting independent port cities and building communities from the Mediterranean to the South Pacific. In this model, similarity in design doesn't imply a single ruler, but rather a shared technological language, much like how different countries today all use the same basic principles of computer engineering despite having different governments. This networked civilization would have been a coalition of skilled guilds, master stonemasons, astronomers, and hydraulic engineers whose expertise was in such high demand that they traveled the world, bringing their advanced techniques to different communities who could afford their services. This could explain why we see such advanced engineering in some places, but not necessarily evidence of a large, centralized bureaucratic state apparatus. Then we venture into the most speculative but captivating theories, which propose that these civilizations may have possessed an understanding of natural energies and forces that we are only beginning to rediscover today. Some researchers point to the fascinating acoustic properties of certain ancient structures, noting how many chambers and corridors are designed to resonate at specific frequencies, potentially for healing, spiritual, or even practical energy harnessing purposes. The concept of ley lines, hypothetical alignments of ancient sites that supposedly carry Earth energies, is often woven into these narratives, suggesting that megalithic structures were placed with precision not just for astronomical sightlines, but to tap into this planetary grid system. While the evidence for these ideas remains highly controversial and firmly in the realm of speculation, they stem from a valid question. Could there be a layer of purpose to these sites that our modern, materialistic science is simply not equipped to detect or measure yet? These theories, while currently unproven, play a crucial role in pushing the boundaries of inquiry and encouraging researchers to look at the evidence from entirely new and unconventional angles. The strength of all this theoretical work lies in its interdisciplinary nature, weaving together threads from geology, mythology, and hard data to create plausible, testable scenarios. A geological survey might show that a submerged city was built on a stable geologic plate, helping to explain its longevity. That data is then combined with a local flood myth that speaks of the city's founding by people from the sea, which in turn aligns with archaeological evidence of distinctive pottery styles that are also found in coastal regions thousands of miles away. This triangulation of different fields of study builds a much stronger, more nuanced hypothesis than any single discipline could achieve alone. These models are not presented as final answers, but as frameworks for future research, a map of where to look next and what to look for. They generate specific, testable predictions. For instance, if a culture was truly a decentralized maritime network, then underwater archaeologists should eventually find the remains of their deep ocean vessels. If they used advanced geopolymer concrete, then chemical analysis of stones from different sites should reveal a consistent, man-made recipe. This entire theoretical endeavor is far from being an idle academic exercise. It is the essential engine that drives discovery forward. It provides the why behind the what, transforming a collection of interesting ruins into a compelling human story. By developing these models, we are essentially building a scaffold of understanding that allows us to ask better questions and design more targeted excavations. More importantly, as we refine our ideas about how these ancient societies functioned, how they organized labor, managed resources, and applied their profound understanding of physics and nature, we begin to extract practical wisdom that is incredibly relevant to our own time. The way they built for resilience and sustainability, creating structures that have endured for 12,000 years, offers a powerful lesson in long-term thinking that stands in stark contrast to our own often disposable culture. Their potential mastery of passive energy systems and harmonious environmental integration could inspire a new generation of engineers to look for solutions that work with the planet's natural systems, rather than constantly fighting against them. In this way, the theoretical reconstruction of these lost civilizations does much more than satisfy our curiosity about the past. It provides a crucial bridge, connecting the ingenuity of our deepest history to the innovation needed for our future. In a fascinating twist of historical irony, the very same engineering principles that allowed ancient structures to survive millennia of submersion and seismic activity are now being urgently studied by modern architects and engineers as a blueprint for a more resilient future. This isn't about nostalgia or mere academic curiosity. It's a practical, cross-temporal collaboration where the solutions to some of our most pressing modern challenges, climate change, resource scarcity, and natural disasters, may have been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. The field of biomimicry, where designers imitate nature's time-tested patterns and strategies, is now being joined by a new discipline we might call techno-archaeology, where we look to the brilliance of our ancestors for inspiration. This represents a profound shift in perspective. We are no longer viewing these ancient sites as mere relics of a lost world, but as active, living textbooks of sustainable innovation. One of the most critical areas of study is ancient water management. In an era of increasing droughts and erratic rainfall, the sophisticated systems found in places like the pre-flood city of Dholavira in India are a masterclass in hydrological efficiency. This Harappan city, designed millennia ago, features a complex network of canals, reservoirs, and stormwater drains that allowed it to thrive in a semi-arid region. Engineers today are reverse engineering these designs to develop modern, low-tech solutions for rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge. The ancient practice of creating stepped, subterranean wells not only prevented evaporation, but also naturally filtered the water. Modern architects are now incorporating similar principles into building designs, creating structures that capture, store, and purify their own water, significantly reducing their reliance on municipal systems and their environmental footprint. Perhaps the most urgent lesson comes from the astounding seismic resilience demonstrated by these prehistoric builders. In a world where earthquakes continue to devastate modern cities built with rigid, high-strength materials, the flexible, mortarless construction of ancient megalithic sites offers a radically different approach. The interlocking stonework found from Peru to Japan acts as a kind of seismic isolation system. During a tremor, the individual blocks can shift and settle minutely, dissipating the energy of the quake throughout the structure, and then settle back into place. This is a stark contrast to modern reinforced concrete, which, while incredibly strong, is also brittle and can fail catastrophically when shaken beyond its limits. Contemporary seismic engineers are now experimenting with modern materials that mimic this ancient principle, developing building foundations and frames that are designed to sway and flex, to dance with an earthquake rather than try to resist it outright, potentially saving countless lives in the process. The ancient mastery of passive environmental control is another area of intense interest. Long before the invention of air conditioning, builders were designing structures that remained cool in blistering heat and warm in frigid cold using nothing more than clever orientation, strategic window placement, and thermal mass. The alignment of buildings to capture prevailing breezes for natural ventilation, the use of thick stone walls to absorb heat during the day and release it slowly at night, and the construction of underground living spaces that leverage the Earth's constant temperature are all techniques being re-evaluated. For modern sustainable architecture, which seeks to drastically reduce energy consumption, these passive strategies are a gold mine. By integrating these age-old principles, we can design buildings that require a fraction of the energy to heat and cool, moving away from a reliance on fossil fuels and towards a truly sustainable model of living that works in harmony with the local climate rather than fighting against it. This cross-temporal exchange fundamentally challenges our modern arrogance about technological progress. We often operate under the assumption that newer is inherently better, that our solutions are the most advanced simply because they are the most recent. The enduring legacy of these ancient constructions forces a humbling reconsideration. It suggests that true advancement isn't just about stronger materials or more complex systems. It's about smarter design, about deeply understanding the forces of nature and designing elegant, efficient solutions that work with those forces. The timelessness of their good design highlights a critical flaw in our own often disposable culture, where buildings are sometimes designed for a lifespan of decades, not millennia. By looking backward, we are finding a path forward, one that values durability, sustainability, and harmony with the planet, proving that the most cutting-edge technology for our future might just be the wisdom we forgot from our distant past. But as we marvel at the ingenuity of these lost civilizations, it's almost impossible not to turn that lens of inquiry back on ourselves. What will remain of our own world 10,000 years from now? The skyscrapers of glass and steel, the intricate silicon chips of our computers, the sprawling networks of asphalt and plastic, how will these artifacts speak to future explorers? The concrete that defines our modern cities, for all its initial strength, is notoriously vulnerable to water and seismic shock over centuries, often crumbling and corroding where ancient geopolymer stone still stands defiant. This invites a moment of profound personal reflection, a quiet question about the permanence of our own legacy. We have built a society of incredible complexity and convenience, but have we constructed it to last? Or are we creating an archaeological record that will be defined by thin layers of fragile, disposable technology and the haunting, plastic-filled sediment layers of our oceans? This isn't a call for judgment, but for perspective, a chance to see our modern achievements not as an end point, but as a single, fleeting moment in the long, cyclical story of human endeavor. This line of thinking naturally transforms you from a passive viewer into an active participant in this ongoing discovery. The story of these ancient shorelines isn't confined to distant, exotic locations. It's likely unfolding right where you are. Every coastline, every river valley, every region with a deep history has its own layers of forgotten stories waiting to be recognized. Perhaps there's a local myth in your area about a town lost to a reservoir or a strange, out-of-place stone formation on a beach that has always puzzled you. That curiosity is the first spark of discovery. Engaging with history can be as simple as taking a different kind of walk, looking at the landscape with new eyes, and asking what the world looked like centuries or millennia ago before recent development reshaped it. Many of the most exciting archaeological finds begin not with a professional dig, but with an amateur enthusiast who noticed something odd and decided to investigate further, connecting a local puzzle to a much larger global pattern. And this is where our community becomes our greatest resource. The comment section below this video isn't just a space for feedback. It's a digital campfire where we can all share our stories and insights. Have you ever visited a place that felt ancient and mysterious? Maybe you've seen a documentary or read an article that changed how you think about the past. Sharing those personal connections and local knowledge creates a powerful network of collaborative learning. Someone watching in Scotland might share a story about a submerged forest revealed by a storm, while a viewer in Mexico could describe ancient ruins aligned with a volcano. And that exchange of experiences helps us all see the bigger picture more clearly. Your unique perspective and curiosity are a vital part of this exploration, adding another piece to the vast, interconnected puzzle of our shared human history. This journey through time ultimately becomes a personal one, challenging us to consider the marks we are leaving on the planet, both literal and metaphorical. The pre-flood civilizations, in their drive to build structures that would endure for eternity, were making a powerful statement about their values, their connection to the cosmos, and their desire to be remembered. What statement are we making? Our legacy will be read not just in our physical constructions, but in the chemical composition of the ice cores, the fossil record, and the geological strata that will define our epoch. This reflective process doesn't require us to abandon modern life, but perhaps to build with more intention, to think about the longevity of our designs, and to value wisdom that prioritizes harmony with nature over short-term convenience. By making this history personal, we ensure that the lessons of resilience and adaptation learned from our ancestors are not just academic facts, but living principles that can guide our choices and inspire a new generation of builders, thinkers, and stewards of our planet's deep and fragile story. Of course, it's crucial to address the more sensational narratives that often swirl around these ancient finds. While the allure of a mystery is undeniable, the truth behind these pre-flood engineering feats is in many ways even more compelling than fiction. Popular culture has a tendency to explain away these marvels by attributing them to extraterrestrial visitors or to a completely fictional, hyper-advanced lost race like Atlantis. These stories capture the imagination, but they share a common and rather significant flaw: a complete absence of concrete evidence. They are compelling narratives, not scientific hypotheses. Relying on such explanations does a profound disservice to the incredible ingenuity of our own human ancestors. It effectively robs them of their achievements, outsourcing their brilliance to outside forces instead of recognizing the immense capacity for innovation that has always existed within humanity itself. To navigate past these enticing myths, we must anchor ourselves to a fundamental principle of scientific inquiry known as Occam's razor. This principle suggests that among competing explanations for a phenomenon, the simplest one that fits all the available evidence is usually correct. Let's apply this. On one hand, we have the complex alien intervention theory, which requires believing in interstellar travel, advanced non-human intelligence, and a complete lack of archaeological evidence for their technology on Earth. On the other hand, we have a simpler explanation: that highly motivated, intelligent human beings with a deep understanding of their environment and generations of accumulated knowledge developed ingenious techniques to solve the problems they faced. When we look at the evidence without preconceived notions, the human ingenuity argument is not only more plausible, but is directly supported by the tools, tool marks, and experimental archaeology that successfully replicates these ancient methods using period-appropriate technology. Take, for instance, the perennial mystery of how massive stones were moved. The idea of anti-gravity devices or sonic levitation is thrilling, but the reality, while less flashy, is a testament to brilliant practical physics. We have extensive evidence from sites worldwide for the use of log rollers, sledges, and lubricated slipways. Experiments have shown that a team of workers can move a multi-ton block over rollers with a surprising degree of control and efficiency. For inclines, the construction of massive earthen ramps is well documented at sites like the Egyptian pyramids. The quarries themselves often show us the very techniques used. We find channels cut around blocks where workers would have driven in wooden wedges. These wedges were then soaked with water, causing the wood to expand with tremendous force and cleanly crack the stone along a desired line. These are not primitive methods. They are the sophisticated application of simple tools and a deep understanding of material properties. Debunking these myths is not about shutting down wonder or closing doors to possibilities. It's about ensuring academic integrity and maintaining public trust. When outlandish claims are presented as fact without evidence, it creates a climate of skepticism where all archaeological research can be unfairly dismissed as mere speculation. By rigorously separating what is known from what is merely theorized or imagined, we build a foundation of credibility. This allows the genuine, evidence-based discoveries to shine with the brilliance they deserve, free from the distracting noise of unfounded speculation. It demonstrates a respect for the scientific process, which is built on questioning, testing, and verifying, not on accepting appealing stories at face value. This grounded, critical approach ultimately makes the true story of these ancient engineers far more impressive. The narrative that they did all this with their own hands, minds, and collective effort is a far more powerful and human story than one involving outside help. It tells us that humanity has faced immense challenges before and has overcome them with creativity, cooperation, and perseverance. It transforms these sites from potential landing pads for aliens into monuments to human resilience. By clearing away the fog of modern mythology, we can finally see the authentic achievement, a testament to what people are capable of when they work in harmony with their world and each other, leaving a legacy carved in stone for us to rediscover and admire millennia later. The future of uncovering our planet's deepest historical secrets is being written right now, not with shovels and brushes alone, but with a dazzling array of next-generation technology that promises to revolutionize our understanding of pre-flood civilizations. Imagine artificial intelligence algorithms sifting through millions of satellite and sonar images in a single afternoon, a task that would take a human team decades, tirelessly searching for the subtle geometric patterns and unnatural contours that betray a human-made structure hidden beneath jungle canopy or ocean sediment. This isn't science fiction, it's the new frontier of exploration. These AI systems are being trained to recognize the faint signatures of ancient settlements, the circular outline of a foundation, the straight line of a canal, the rectangular footprint of a temple, patterns that are often invisible to the naked eye amidst the chaotic shapes of the natural world. This digital prospecting allows researchers to survey entire continents from their desks, pinpointing the most promising locations for physical excavation with unprecedented precision, ensuring that every dive and every dig has the highest possible chance of success. Beneath the waves, the work is being taken over by a new generation of robotic explorers, autonomous underwater drones equipped with high-resolution multi-beam sonar, advanced metal detectors, and chemical sensors, can now map the seafloor with centimeter-scale accuracy, working tirelessly in the crushing depths and pitch blackness that have kept human divers at bay for centuries. These robotic avatars are our eyes and hands in the abyssal plane, capable of performing delicate archaeological surveys around the clock, unaffected by dangerous currents, limited air supply, or the need for decompression. They can hover motionless above a site, capturing a perfect three-dimensional digital twin, or gently use suction arms to clear sediment from a fragile artifact without ever touching it. This technology is already yielding results, from identifying potential new megalithic sites in the Mediterranean to meticulously documenting the intricate details of known locations like the Yonaguni Monument, creating permanent digital records of sites that remain vulnerable to erosion and human activity. The very timeline of these ancient societies is also coming into sharper focus thanks to dramatic improvements in dating techniques. While radiocarbon dating remains a workhorse, new methods are adding layers of clarity and resolution. Luminescence dating, for instance, can determine the last time a grain of sand was exposed to sunlight, effectively telling us when an ancient pot was buried or a wall was constructed. This is particularly powerful for sites where organic material for carbon dating is scarce. Even more revolutionary is the development of genetic archaeology. Scientists can now analyze the ancient DNA trapped in the layers of sediment itself, sequencing the genetic fragments of plants, animals, and even the microbes that lived alongside these lost civilizations. This allows us to reconstruct the entire ecosystem of a site, what people were eating, what crops they were growing, what diseases they might have faced, building a vibrant, living picture of their daily existence from the invisible biological dust they left behind. This immense undertaking is fostering unprecedented collaborations across scientific disciplines. The lone archaeologist is being replaced by integrated teams where geologists, climatologists, oceanographers, and geneticists work side by side. A climatologist can provide a detailed model of what the weather and sea levels were like in a specific region 12,000 years ago, helping an archaeologist understand why a city was built where it was and what environmental pressures it faced. An oceanographer can analyze current patterns to predict how artifacts might have scattered after a catastrophic flood, giving divers a better idea of where to look. This holistic approach treats each discovery not as an isolated relic, but as a single data point in a vast, interconnected planetary system, weaving together stories of human adaptation, climatic shifts, and geological transformation into a single, coherent narrative. The map for this future research is also expanding into previously inaccessible frontiers. As Arctic ice continues to retreat, it is exposing vast landscapes that were once temperate and habitable during the last ice age. These regions, long sealed under permafrost, could be preservation vaults for organic materials, tools, textiles, and even human remains that would have decayed anywhere else. Similarly, the deep ocean floors beyond the continental shelves represent the final great unexplored wilderness on Earth. Advanced submersibles are now capable of reaching these crushing depths, and who knows what awaits discovery on the vast plains that were dry land during the glacial maximum. The potential for finding evidence of human migration, routes, or even coastal settlements that thrived on these now drowned plains is a tantalizing possibility that drives exploration forward. Perhaps most excitingly, this new golden age of discovery is becoming increasingly democratic through the rise of citizen science. Online platforms now allow anyone with an internet connection to examine high-resolution satellite imagery of remote coastlines and tag potential sites of interest, contributing directly to real academic research. Museums and universities are creating virtual reality experiences that let the public explore digital reconstructions of submerged cities from their living rooms. These initiatives not only accelerate the pace of discovery by harnessing the power of the crowd, but also foster a powerful sense of global stewardship and connection to our shared human heritage, ensuring that the search for our past remains a collective, inclusive endeavor for generations to come. The true power of this exploration doesn't lie within any single field of study. It's found in the beautiful, complex symphony of collaboration between them. Unraveling the secrets of ancient shorelines is a task that no single discipline could ever hope to accomplish alone. It demands a convergence of minds, a meeting of vastly different specialties where geologists, archaeologists, anthropologists, climatologists, and even astrophysicists all bring their unique tools and perspectives to the same table. This isn't just a team effort, it's a complete reinvention of how we approach the deepest mysteries of our past, proving that the most complex puzzles require the most diverse set of problem solvers. Each field acts like a different instrument in an orchestra. A geologist can analyze the sediment layers surrounding a submerged megalith and tell you when it was swallowed by the sea, painting a picture of the environmental forces at play. But it's the anthropologist who can then take that data and cross-reference it with local oral histories and mythologies, interpreting how the people who built that structure might have processed and remembered that catastrophic event. One scientist provides the hard date of the disaster, while the other helps us understand the human heart that endured it. This collaborative model produces a form of understanding that is far richer and more holistic than a Chinese letter DISCIPLINE could ever achieve in isolation. Consider the process of investigating a single site like a sunken city. A marine archaeologist might map the street layout and identify buildings. A materials scientist would then analyze the composition of the mortar holding the stones together, perhaps discovering it's a form of ancient geopolymer concrete. A geneticist could then take core samples from the surrounding seabed, sequencing ancient DNA to determine what crops were grown in the city's fields or what livestock they kept. Meanwhile, an astrophysicist might study the orientation of the main thoroughfare, confirming its alignment with a specific star on the summer solstice. Suddenly, this isn't just a ruin, it's a vibrant portrait. We don't just know the city was there, we know when it was built, what the people ate, how they made their buildings last, and what they held sacred in their relationship with the cosmos. This integrated story, woven from dozens of threads of specialized data, is the only way to even begin to comprehend the full scope of these pre-flood civilizations. This modern interdisciplinary approach fascinatingly mirrors the very nature of the societies we are studying. These ancient builders were not compartmentalized specialists, they were holistic thinkers. The engineer who designed the city's water system needed to understand hydrology, gravity, and material science. The architect aligning a temple with the stars needed a working knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and seasonal cycles. The farmer planning crops based on celestial events blended agricultural science with astronomical observation. They lived in a world where knowledge was inherently interconnected, where spiritual beliefs, scientific understanding, and practical engineering were all part of a single, seamless worldview. In a way, by bringing together our own disparate fields of modern science, we are finally developing the tools to meet them on their own intellectual turf, to appreciate the sophisticated, integrated way they saw and shaped their world. We are learning to think like them in order to understand them. This collaborative spirit does more than just advance our knowledge of the past. It provides a powerful blueprint for how modern science can tackle the immense, multifaceted problems of our own time, such as climate change, public health, and sustainable development. These are not issues that can be solved by climatologists or doctors or engineers working in silos. They require the same kind of integrated, all-hands-on-deck approach that is proving so successful in underwater archaeology. The model of sharing data, respecting different forms of expertise, and working toward a common goal is perhaps one of the most valuable legacies of this entire field of research. It demonstrates that the greatest challenges, whether they are buried under the sand or looming in our future, are best met with a unity of purpose and a diversity of thought. This powerful synergy of disciplines, which brings the past to life with such startling clarity, naturally leads us to consider how these discoveries impact the present, particularly in the very tangible realms of local economies and community vitality. The unearthing of these ancient shoreline sites sends ripples far beyond the academic world, creating powerful and often transformative economic currents for the local communities who become the unexpected guardians of this global heritage. When a place like the sunken city of Dwarka in India or the enigmatic Yonaguni monument in Japan captures the world's imagination, it doesn't just attract archaeologists, it draws curious travelers from across the globe. This influx of tourism can be an absolute lifeline for a regional economy, creating a surge of new jobs not just in guiding and hospitality, but in transportation, food services, and retail. A village that once relied on a single industry like fishing or farming suddenly finds itself at the center of a vibrant new ecosystem. local artisans begin crafting replicas of artifacts, new hotels and restaurants open their doors, and a sense of pride blossoms as the community's history becomes a source of international fascination and respect. This isn't merely about income, it's about cultural exchange on a grand scale, where visitors from different continents bring their perspectives and stories, weaving a new layer of global connection onto an ancient tapestry. However, this newfound attention is a double-edged sword that must be handled with immense care and foresight. The very act of loving a place to death is a very real danger in archaeology. An unmanaged flood of visitors can lead to irreversible damage. Fragile structures can be eroded by countless footsteps. The microclimate of a submerged site can be altered by dive bubbles and sediment disturbance, and priceless artifacts can be looted or accidentally damaged. Furthermore, there's a critical risk of exploitation, where outside corporations sweep in to capitalize on the discovery, building large resorts that overshadow the local culture and funnel profits away from the community that rightfully owns this heritage. The goal, therefore, cannot be unchecked tourism, but meticulously planned and deeply responsible cultural travel. This means implementing strict visitor caps, constructing viewing platforms that protect the ruins from direct contact, and training local guides who can educate visitors on both the history and the fragility of the site. The revenue generated from carefully managed entrance fees and tours should be viewed not as pure profit, but as a direct reinvestment into the site itself, funding ongoing preservation efforts, security, and vital scientific research. When this balance is struck correctly, the benefits extend into powerful creative and educational spheres. A major discovery becomes a story that the whole world wants to hear, inspiring a wave of documentaries, books, podcasts, and educational programs. This creates a secondary economic boom in the creative industries, employing filmmakers, writers, researchers, and animators to bring the ancient world to life. These media projects act as a force multiplier for awareness, generating global interest that translates into more visitors, more funding, and a greater imperative for preservation. They also become invaluable educational tools, allowing people who may never be able to travel to these remote locations to experience them virtually, sparking a passion for history and archaeology in a new generation. This cycle of discovery, storytelling, and education creates a sustainable model where the economic value of the past directly fuels its own protection and propagation, proving that our history is not a financial burden but a profound and renewable resource. The ultimate success of this model hinges on a fundamental principle that the local community must be the primary author and beneficiary of its own story. This means moving beyond a model where international experts simply conduct research and leave. True sustainability involves deep collaboration from the very beginning. Archaeological teams should partner with local universities, hire and train residents in excavation and conservation techniques, and ensure that the narrative presented to tourists is co-written by those who have a deep, generational connection to the land and its legends. This empowers the community, giving them ownership not just of the economic benefits, but of their own cultural narrative. It transforms them from passive bystanders into active stewards, ensuring that the site is managed with a long-term perspective that values preservation over short-term profit. This community-centric approach is the only way to ensure that these irreplaceable windows into our past are not consumed by the very attention they generate, but are instead cherished, protected, and allowed to continue revealing their secrets for centuries to come. These incredible discoveries emerging from ancient shorelines are doing more than just rewriting academic papers. They are slowly but surely making their way into the very classrooms where future generations are forming their understanding of the world. The integration of this new evidence into educational curricula, from elementary schools to university graduate programs, represents a fundamental shift in how we teach human history and the evolution of technology. For decades, the standard narrative has followed a linear and often Eurocentric path: Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Rome. But now, educators are armed with tangible, awe-inspiring examples that challenge this narrow view. Imagine a middle school history lesson where students don't just read about the pyramids, but they also explore interactive, three-dimensional models of the submerged city of Dwarka or the Yonaguni Monument. They can compare the water management systems of ancient India to those of the Romans, not as a sequential progression, but as parallel achievements of human ingenuity. This approach doesn't diminish the accomplishments of any culture. Instead, it enriches the entire story by showing a global tapestry of innovation. It encourages students to think critically, to question established timelines, and to understand history not as a static set of facts, but as a dynamic, evolving field of discovery. The pedagogical methods for bringing this subject to life are as innovative as the discoveries themselves. Beyond textbooks, educators are developing immersive virtual reality experiences that allow students to take a simulated dive to explore these underwater ruins firsthand, swimming through digital reconstructions of ancient harbors and observing the precise stonework of megalithic structures. Hands-on projects might involve students attempting to build scale models using interlocking blocks without mortar, physically demonstrating the principles of seismic resilience that these ancient engineers mastered. University programs are increasingly offering interdisciplinary courses that combine archaeology, geology, oceanography, and materials science, reflecting the very same collaborative spirit that drives the research in the field. Museums are becoming essential partners, creating traveling exhibits filled with replicas of artifacts, sonar maps, and interactive displays that explain the scientific dating methods used to confirm the age of these sites. This multi-sensory, experience-based learning is crucial for making complex concepts accessible and exciting, showing students that science and history are not about memorizing dates, but about solving the greatest mysteries of our past. Perhaps the most profound impact of this educational integration is its power to correct long-standing omissions and foster a more inclusive worldview. For far too long, the historical contributions of non-Western civilizations have been marginalized, often relegated to sidebars or presented as derivative. The staggering scale of pre-flood engineering found on every continent completely dismantles this outdated perspective. When students in a classroom in North America learn about sophisticated astronomical observatories in ancient India or advanced maritime infrastructure in pre-colonial Southeast Asia, it expands their understanding of where and how human genius has flourished. It moves these cultures from the periphery of the historical narrative to the very center of a global conversation about human achievement. This is not about replacing one history with another. It's about weaving together a more complete and truthful story that acknowledges the brilliance that emerged independently across the globe. It teaches empathy and respect for diverse cultures by highlighting their profound intellectual and technological contributions to our shared human heritage. By embedding these lessons into the foundation of education, we are doing more than just updating a curriculum. We are preparing the next generation of stewards, scientists, and historians. Students who grow up with this expanded perspective will be naturally equipped to continue this research, asking new questions and applying even more advanced technologies to unravel the remaining mysteries. They will be the ones operating the next generation of underwater drones and developing the AI algorithms that sift through planetary data for new clues. More importantly, they will inherit the ethical responsibility that comes with these discoveries. Education ensures that the lessons from these pre-flood civilizations, not just their engineering techniques, but their apparent understanding of sustainability, resilience, and living in harmony with a changing planet, are not lost again. This knowledge becomes a living legacy passed down not through stone tablets, but through inspired minds, ensuring that the exploration and preservation of our deep past continues long into the future. Yet, even as we race to uncover these secrets, we face a heartbreaking paradox. The very act of discovery, and indeed the modern world itself, places these irreplaceable sites in immediate and often severe danger. These ancient structures survived for millennia under a protective blanket of water and sediment, but now that they are exposed, they confront a gauntlet of modern threats that they were never designed to withstand. The most relentless of these is natural erosion. Waves, currents, and tidal action, now supercharged by increasingly powerful storms linked to climate change, physically batter the stonework, scouring away delicate surface details and undermining foundations. On land, wind and rain work to dismantle what the sea does not reach. But the damage from nature, while significant, is often slow compared to the devastating impact of human activity. Looters hunting for valuable artifacts to sell on the black market will ruthlessly dismantle structures, destroying archaeological context forever in their search for a saleable treasure. Even well-meaning tourists can cause immense harm simply by walking on fragile ruins, their footsteps eroding ancient surfaces and their sunscreens and oils subtly degrading the stone. The solution to this complex crisis is not a single magic bullet but a multi-layered strategy of defense, combining cutting-edge technology, physical protection, and robust legal frameworks. The first and often most crucial step is digital preservation. Using technologies like photogrammetry and LiDAR, archaeologists can create incredibly detailed three-dimensional digital models of a site. This process involves taking thousands of high-resolution photographs from every possible angle, which specialized software then stitches together into a perfect virtual replica. This digital twin is invaluable. It provides a permanent record that can be studied by researchers anywhere in the world, minimizing the need for physical handling. If a section of the site is ever damaged by a storm or human activity, the digital model provides the blueprint for accurate restoration. It also allows for the creation of immersive virtual reality experiences, granting the public access without them ever setting foot on the fragile site itself. For the physical site, direct intervention is sometimes necessary. In some cases, this means actually reburying excavated areas with protective geotextile fabrics and sand to shield them from the elements after they have been fully documented. In other instances, engineers construct defensive barriers like seawalls or breakwaters to dissipate the energy of destructive waves. Perhaps the most fascinating area of innovation is in the development of innovative conservation materials. Scientists are creating nanoscale consolidants, special liquids that can be brushed or sprayed onto crumbling stone. These solutions seep deep into the rock's pores and then harden, bonding with the original material and strengthening it from the inside out without altering its appearance. This is like giving the ancient stone a new skeleton, reinforcing it against future erosion while keeping its authentic historical character completely intact. None of this work can happen without a strong foundation of law and international cooperation. This is where organizations like UNESCO provide an essential framework. Their World Heritage Site designation does more than just grant a prestigious title. It mobilizes global resources, expertise, and funding for preservation. It also encourages member states to enact and enforce stricter laws against looting and unauthorized development near these sensitive areas. However, the most powerful protectors of these sites are often the local communities who live alongside them. When people feel a sense of ownership and pride in their local heritage, they become its most passionate guardians. Successful preservation projects increasingly involve collaborating with these communities from the very beginning, training local residents as site monitors and guides, and ensuring that the economic benefits of responsible tourism and research are felt locally. This transforms the site from a distant archaeological dig into a valued part of the community's identity and livelihood, creating a network of watchful eyes that no security force could ever match. This global effort, blending technology, law, and local heart, is our best hope for ensuring these silent stone manuscripts remain intact, their stories waiting to be read by the generations yet to come. As we stand at the edge of these receding waters, looking back across the vast expanse of evidence we've explored together, a truly breathtaking picture comes into focus. This journey has revealed a chapter of human history written not in parchment, but in stone and sediment, a narrative of astonishing ingenuity that forces us to completely reconsider the story of our own species. The most profound insight is the sheer sophistication of pre-flood engineering. These were not primitive societies tentatively experimenting with tools. They were master builders who designed intricate water management systems with sluice gates and reservoirs that rival modern municipal projects. They erected megalithic structures with such precision that we still debate their methods, and they aligned their cities and temples with celestial events, demonstrating a deep, practical knowledge of astronomy that guided both their agriculture and their spirituality. This level of achievement, found on coastlines across the globe, shatters the conventional timeline of a linear progression from simple to complex civilization. These discoveries do more than just push back the clock on human innovation. They weave a compelling tale of global interconnection long before the age of exploration. The uncanny similarities in architectural styles, the interlocking, mortarless masonry designed for seismic resilience, the sophisticated port facilities with breakwaters and tidal docks, the consistent use of specific, durable materials point toward a world that was far more interconnected than we ever imagined. Whether this was due to a vast maritime network sharing knowledge across oceans, or the independent, parallel invention of similar solutions to common environmental pressures, the implication is the same: humanity's creative spark is a universal constant. This evidence suggests that advanced societal development may have occurred in cycles, with periods of brilliant flourishing followed by catastrophic collapse, rather than the steady, upward climb we've long been taught. Perhaps the most humbling and immediately relevant revelation is the powerful lesson in sustainability and resilience these ancient engineers left for us. Their approach was one of harmony with the natural world, not domination. They built to last for millennia using passive cooling, natural ventilation, and designs that worked with geological and hydrological forces rather than against them. In an era of climate change and disposable infrastructure, their long-term thinking offers a critical alternative model. They provide a case study in adapting to environmental upheaval, showing us that technological advancement is not just about power and complexity, but about elegance, efficiency, and foresight. Their legacy, preserved beneath the waves, is a testament to the timelessness of good design and a poignant reminder of the fragility of even the most advanced societies when faced with planetary shifts. Ultimately, this exploration has been a masterclass in interdisciplinary thinking. The full story of these ancient shorelines could only be uncovered by weaving together threads from geology, archaeology, climatology, mythology, and engineering. The hard data from sediment cores and radiocarbon dating gives us the when, while the architectural marvels give us the how. The global flood myths found in hundreds of disparate cultures provide the human why, the emotional and cultural memory of the cataclysms that shaped them. This holistic approach enriches our understanding, proving that the biggest mysteries require a fusion of science and the humanities to solve. Each discovery, from a sunken city to a precisely aligned monolith, is a piece of a vast global puzzle. Summarizing these insights isn't about closing the book. It's about reinforcing that the story is still being written, inviting a new generation of open-minded explorers to continue this profound work of rediscovering our past to better inform our future. This cyclical view of history, revealed by the rise and fall of civilizations long before our own, offers a profound shift in perspective, placing humanity not as masters of the planet but as participants within its vast dynamic systems. The story of these pre-flood societies is a powerful testament to the immense, often uncontrollable forces of nature, specifically the climatic upheavals that followed the last ice age. Their experience demonstrates that even the most advanced and ingeniously engineered cultures are not immune to planetary-scale changes. This realization isn't meant to foster a sense of doom, but rather a necessary and grounding humility. It challenges the modern, often arrogant, narrative of endless progress and human dominion, reminding us that our technological prowess, for all its wonders, exists within a fragile ecological context that has dictated the fate of empires for millennia. This long-term view, stretching back thousands of years, forces us to consider the ultimate sustainability of our own actions. Are we building a society that can weather the inevitable environmental shifts to come, or are we, like so many before us, constructing a magnificent but vulnerable edifice on an unstable foundation? This historical context provides an invaluable library of case studies for navigating our own contemporary global challenges, particularly climate change. By examining how these ancient cultures responded to rising sea levels, whether through adaptive engineering, managed retreat, or ultimately collapse, we can gather critical data on resilience. Their successes and failures become a form of ancestral wisdom, a guidebook written in stone and sediment. For instance, their sophisticated water management systems show a deep understanding of working with hydrological cycles rather than against them, a principle that modern civil engineering is only now urgently readopting with concepts like green infrastructure and sponge cities. Their use of local, durable materials and passive solar design offers a masterclass in reducing ecological footprints and building for longevity, not just for the next quarterly report. Learning from their past is not about replicating their specific technologies, but about embracing their overarching philosophy, a respectful, observant, and adaptive relationship with the natural world. Beyond the practical lessons, this connection to our deep past fosters a powerful and often overlooked sense of continuity. It bridges the chasm of time, transforming those anonymous ancient engineers from abstract concepts into our direct predecessors, intelligent, feeling people who loved, built, feared, and innovated just as we do. They faced trials that were different in scale but similar in nature to our own: how to protect their communities from disaster, how to manage scarce resources, and how to leave a meaningful legacy for their children. Recognizing this shared struggle creates a profound emotional and psychological link across the centuries. It tells us that we are not the first generation to stare down existential environmental threats, and that the human capacity for creativity and resilience is not a modern invention but a fundamental, enduring trait that has carried us through countless cycles of crisis and renewal. This connection can be a profound source of strength and perspective in an often anxious modern world, Ultimately, this bigger picture, woven from geological data and archaeological finds, is a narrative that balances sobering reality with genuine hope. It acknowledges our vulnerability within the great cycles of nature, but it simultaneously celebrates the incredible resilience and creativity that is our species' greatest inheritance. The very fact that we are here today, piecing together the clues of their downfall, is a testament to that resilience. Their story is not one of pure tragedy, but of a magnificent, though ultimately failed, attempt to persevere. This offers a hopeful blueprint. If they could achieve so much with so little, what could we accomplish if we consciously directed our vast knowledge and technology toward truly sustainable, long-term coexistence with our planet? By seeing ourselves within these grand, repeating cycles, we are empowered to make more informed and conscious choices. We can choose to build a legacy that future generations might one day uncover not as a warning, but as an inspiration, a testament to the time we finally learned to listen to the whispers of the past and chose a path of harmony, ensuring that our chapter in the human story is one worth remembering. But this journey doesn't have to end when this video does. The most thrilling part of this entire exploration is realizing that you can become an active participant in this unfolding story of our past. The quest to understand these ancient shorelines is not a closed book written by a few experts. It's a living, breathing field of discovery where your curiosity can genuinely make a difference. Think of yourself not just as a viewer, but as a potential citizen scientist, a supporter, and a steward of this incredible heritage. The tools to dive deeper are more accessible than ever before, and your engagement can help ensure these fragile sites are studied, preserved, and understood for generations to come. One of the most immediate and impactful ways to contribute is by supporting the organizations on the front lines of this work. Renowned groups like the Archaeological Institute of America, the Ocean Exploration Trust, or your local historical and archaeological societies are the engines behind the research, excavations, and preservation efforts. Their work is often painstakingly slow and underfunded. Your support, whether through a financial donation, purchasing a membership, or even volunteering your time and skills, directly fuels the next great discovery. These organizations are the guardians of our shared history, and by backing them, you become a part of that vital mission. Furthermore, the digital age has opened up incredible opportunities for direct participation through citizen science projects. Online platforms like Zooniverse host initiatives where you can help professional archaeologists by examining satellite imagery from your own computer, tagging potential sites of interest, or transcribing excavation logs. You could be the one to spot the faint, geometric outline of a forgotten structure hidden under a jungle canopy or off a remote coastline, contributing a crucial data point that leads to a full-blown expedition. To truly wrap your mind around these concepts and the ongoing debates, immerse yourself in the work of the experts themselves. Seek out books by leading researchers in the field, authors like Graham Hancock, Robert Scott, or the many academics publishing their findings, but always read with a critical and curious mind, comparing different viewpoints. Dive into meticulously researched documentaries that bring these submerged worlds to life, allowing you to visually explore these ruins and understand the geological context in a way that static text simply cannot provide. The learning process itself is an adventure, and don't learn in isolation. The digital world is full of vibrant communities of amateur enthusiasts and professional scholars debating these very topics. Join forums, follow social media accounts dedicated to ancient mysteries and alternative archaeology, and engage in respectful discussions, sharing an article you found, asking a thoughtful question, or presenting your own theory based on the evidence fosters a collective intelligence and keeps the conversation dynamic and evolving. If you have the opportunity and means, consider experiencing this history firsthand through responsible travel. Visiting a local museum with a collection of artifacts from coastal indigenous cultures can provide a tangible connection to the people who lived through these changes. And if you are able to travel to a country that is home to one of these incredible shoreline sites, do so with the utmost respect and mindfulness. Choose tour operators who prioritize preservation over profit, who stick to designated paths, and who educate their guests on the fragility of the site. Remember, you are a guest in a place that is both an archaeological treasure and often a sacred space. Take only photographs, leave no trace, and let the awe you feel in that place fuel your commitment to protecting it. Your informed and respectful visitation tells local governments and communities that these sites have value worth preserving, not just for their historical significance, but for the sustainable cultural tourism they can support. Ultimately, the most powerful tool you have is your own sustained curiosity. Stay informed, question narratives, and look at the world around you with a wondering eye. The landscape you live in has a history that stretches back thousands of years. What might be hidden beneath the soil or just offshore? By embracing this active, engaged role, you help ensure that the mysteries of our past remain a vibrant, living inquiry. You become part of a global community of learners and explorers, ensuring that the story of human resilience and ingenuity continues to be uncovered, piece by piece, for everyone. Your involvement genuinely matters, turning the awe you feel right now into a force for real discovery and preservation. As we've explored the ancient shorelines revealed by receding oceans, we've uncovered a world of advanced engineering and profound wisdom that fundamentally reshapes our understanding of human history. This journey has taken us from the grid-like streets of submerged cities to the celestial alignments of megalithic structures, from sophisticated water management systems to the global patterns of maritime infrastructure. Each discovery serves as a powerful testament to the ingenuity and resilience of our ancestors, showcasing a level of technological achievement that rivals and sometimes surpasses our modern capabilities in its elegance and sustainability. These finds challenge the conventional linear narrative of human progress, suggesting instead a cyclical pattern of civilizations rising to great heights, facing environmental challenges, and leaving behind clues for future generations to decipher. The true value of these revelations extends far beyond academic curiosity or historical revisionism. They offer us something far more precious, practical wisdom for navigating our own era of environmental uncertainty. The ancient engineers who built to withstand millennia, who harnessed natural forces rather than fighting against them, and who integrated their structures with the rhythms of the planet, provide us with a blueprint for sustainable living that we desperately need today. Their approach to construction, resource management, and community design demonstrates a holistic understanding of our place within natural systems that modern society has largely forgotten in its pursuit of technological domination. By studying their methods and learning from both their successes and their ultimate vulnerabilities, we gain invaluable insights into creating a more resilient future for ourselves and generations to come. What makes this exploration truly transformative is the realization that these ancient clues are not isolated relics, but interconnected pieces of a global human story. The similarities in engineering principles, architectural styles, and mythological accounts across distant continents suggest a shared human experience of facing environmental challenges with creativity and determination. This connected heritage reminds us that the drive to innovate, adapt, and leave a meaningful legacy is a universal human trait that transcends cultural boundaries and historical periods. It fosters a sense of global citizenship and shared responsibility for preserving both our common past and our collective future. your engagement with this journey doesn't have to end here. The field of ancient shoreline archaeology is evolving rapidly, with new discoveries emerging as climate patterns shift and research technologies advance. You can continue this exploration by supporting archaeological organizations, participating in citizen science projects that analyze satellite imagery, or simply by looking at your own local landscape with fresh, curious eyes. Every coastline, every river valley, every region has its own layers of history waiting to be understood. Share your thoughts and discoveries with others, because it's through this collective curiosity and dialogue that we piece together the full story of our human experience. Thank you for joining this profound exploration into the depths of time and human potential. Remember that the most exciting discoveries often lie just beyond the edge of our current understanding, waiting for curious minds to bring them to light. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep sharing your perspective. It's through this collaborative spirit that we continue unraveling the greatest mysteries of our world. If you found this journey as fascinating as we have, consider subscribing for more content that challenges conventional wisdom and reveals the hidden connections that shape our understanding of history, science, and human achievement.